Well, thanks for gathering today, guys. Pretty cool. Shout out to so we got Raiku up here, we got Venruki here, we got my guy Aeghis over here. We are just gonna be chatting for a little bit. Before we get started, I first want to say, well, thank you guys so much for coming and making time. I really appreciate it. And second, I really just want to say that we all collectively understand that mages are really good right now. We're not complaining. I just want to make this very clear before we get started that we all understand that mages are really good. They're very, you could even maybe say OP, and that RMP is very strong. And none of us are complaining that mages are bad.
I feel like it's important to say fire mages. Okay, so
fire mages, yeah.
True. Yeah, thank you.
So I just want to start that here, like as a disclaimer that we all understand that mages are very good. None of us are salty that mages are maybe going to be bad. But this conversation is about the mage playstyle. Okay, so we want to chat about how to make mages fun again, how to make them exciting to play and to play against. So more fun for people. When you see a mage, it's not like, oh, like we want it to be fun to play against, you want it to fun to play as. And this conversation has nothing to do with how, or not much to do with how good mages are in one specific comp as one specific spec in the AWC, right? So this conversation is a bit more broad about how mages are going to play. And the next thing I want to say before we get started too is that we all appreciate Blizzard and the devs over at Blizzard. All right, we're gonna try our best to be as constructive as possible and not just be like, oh, this is shit or this is bad. We're gonna try to be like, you know what, maybe it could be this instead, or maybe this would be a more fun option. So we understand being a dev is a hard job and that it's not no easy cakewalk, and that we're gonna try to be as constructive as possible when we're kind of having this conversation. So with that, we can get started.
How long did it take you? I have to ask, how long did it take you to write this morning? You know,
I didn't
you talk to like your PR manager.
No, I didn't write it. I just started that off like I just wanted to put that out there to start off on a good front, because I know there's gonna be people that tune in. They're like, oh, they're crying about mages when they're OP, and it's like, well, that's nothing to do with that. So I just wanted to start it like that. All right, okay. So getting started. Do you guys want to start with fire? Frost or Arcane? I'm good to start with fire if you guys want.
Yeah, me too. Fire.
Fire.
Okay. All right, great.
Okay.
What about general? I feel like general.
I was gonna say we should start with the general tree. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. General makes more sense than any of the three. Let's hop into general. So, I mean, the first thing is that, like, in general, mages don't really have much baseline. So if you go into alpha and make a mage, you don't really have many talents at all. So the first talent you have on the very top of that general tree is Blazing Barrier. Seems fine, I guess. And then below that, we have Invis, Shatter, Cone of Cold, and Ice Block. So, like, what do you guys think about these first four talents? Like, is this okay? Is this exciting? Is this something that you guys are looking forward to? Or is it, like, a little weird?
Frostmage get a slow, I think, which is kind of nice-ish from Cone of Cold. Fire Mage has never really had a slow before. I mean, Frostmage had it, but for Fire Mage, I think it's kind of cool, but nothing else is too exciting.
Okay. Do you think Cone of Cold is going to have a place as a Fire Mage when you have a talent like Slow down here?
I feel like Shatter is kind of hard useless unless you're playing maybe a very specific comp, so I think you kind of go Cone of Cold by default.
Just to grab remove curse. Got it.
I think my biggest problem with the intro row is Shatter and Cone are like so situational. I mean, for a lot of the specs, you're not even going to want to get it. I mean, obviously you have to, but you need to pick one of them in order to get Remove Curse, Slow, Spell Steal. You know, it leads to so much, and they're mandatory talents that I don't think are like that interesting and could easily be avoided.
Yeah, I feel the exact same way as you, Ven. Like with Shatter, it doesn't seem like I want to use Shatter as a Fire Mage because I have Combust to guarantee crit. So, I mean, with Shatter, it's not really going to do like too much. So like Raiku said, it's like, okay, well, I guess I'll take Cone of Cold, but I'm already going to have Slow. So yeah, maybe that first
and
talent.
Blast Wave, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mass Polymorph, though, is pretty interesting, and we can get to that in a second. But with like sheathing two targets at the same time, I don't know. Actually, since we brought it up, what do you guys... Are you guys excited for Mass Polymorph, or are you guys kind of just like scratching your head and you're just like, what's going on to that?
Personally, I'd rather have like something like Frostjaw. I think that'd be more fun, but that's my opinion.
I agree with that. What about you, Raiku?
I mean, I kind of feel the same. The thing is, it's only 10-yard range, so you can only do it if you're like almost standing on top of two melees at the same time, and you're also putting two people on DR. Like, of course, it could work, but it's like very specific moments, I feel like.
Like my thoughts on it in general, or I feel like Blast Wave is going to have more utility as not only like a knock, but like a pseudo interrupt. So it's going to be similar to like Dragon's Breath. You can interrupt spells with it. And then I also feel like Mass Polymorph kind of is just redundant with Ring of Frost. So if you're playing like any kind of Ring of Frost build, you don't really want Mass Polymorph. I feel like there's too much redundancy there.
Yeah, I can agree with this.
Much in-cap DR.
Yep.
Yeah, so I agree with what you guys said. So it seems like with this row, I'll bring it up on the stream real quick. The Mass Polymorph seems like as a mage, we already have Polymorph, we already have Ring of Frost. So adding in a third poly DR'd spell just doesn't feel exciting. It seems like a little like not super exciting, not super fun. It would almost be like just to give an analogy for a rogue that has gouge and has sap. It would be as if you got like mass gouge, like a disorienting roar. And it's like, well, I mean, maybe, but as much as that might be cool and exciting, it's like, there's not like a ton of use for it because I already have sap and gouge. Like a mass gouge kind of like ruins the point. Like we need to introduce maybe another DR or something a little bit different. So I think the way I'm feeling is it's kind of like a big miss with Mass Polymorph. And then additionally, I think if you're fighting the mage, if you're like a Retina Warrior and you get DB'd into a Mass Poly, that also feels not fun. So I think it's not fun from either side. Like it's not fun for the mage and it's not fun to fight. So in PvP, I think Mass Polymorph is maybe not a super exciting thing to play against or to play.
Yeah, Sven said as well, though, you can just DB double ring if you're playing the ring tree. So it's basically exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
Yep.
True.
Yep. Very redundant. But it is funny though on like Twitter and stuff. I saw people link that. They're like, "What Mass Polymorph? That's so OP! I can't believe it." But I just think with how much like AOE is in the game, it's gonna be so situational to use. Like maybe if you're playing, it's like a literally an RMP mage talent. I swear.
Yeah.
Every other spec just AOEs and breaks it, and you put everything on DR.
It's a great point. I actually thought for sure you would play it just for like the DB double poly, but I guess you just play ring and then have an extra knockback with blast wave. So I think I agree with you guys. I think you've convinced me.
And there's a 70% snare on blast wave too, which is the best we have.
Yeah,
Always knock 'em into your ring
If you
too.
pick Frigid Winds, I think it's 80%.
Yeah, 80% snare, so it's insane. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like that's crazy slow.
Yeah.
So blast wave is actually nuts, and it's only 25-second cooldown compared to Mass Polymorph 1 minute.
Okay. I think the next thing that like I kind of want to bring up, because I know it was like definitely pretty jarring for me, was having slow on all three specs. For me, that felt like Arcane's ability. What I really enjoyed about Shadowlands on Fire Mage, for example, is that you had Frostbolt. And you had Frostbolt. If you wanted to slow, you could cast a Frostbolt, which was kind of like, well, you lose DPS and it's not much damage, but you get it slow. So now I feel like if I have slow as a Fire Mage, well, one, it feels weird, but two, it makes it feel like I have no use for Frostbolt at all anymore. And I'm just never going to cast Frostbolt unless I'm locked in Arcane and Fire, maybe. But I kind of like miss the use of Frostbolt if we just have slow as a Fire Mage. I think additionally, too, it makes Fire Mage feel like, I think the cool thing about Fire maybe is that it didn't have a lot of slows, that is that you didn't have slow. Now having slow spammable on Fire, I don't know. Once again, I don't know if I'm super excited about that. Maybe that's just me. How do you guys feel?
No, I'm right there with you on that one. I feel like it is cool that we're getting like some of the, it is cool that, we're getting some of the diversity from the different specs, in the general tree. But I personally feel like Arcane basically gave up like all its niche in the general tree. Like a lot of the cool stuff of Arcane, including slow, and we can get into more of them later, but I feel like it basically lost all its like kind of unique defensive stuff and was given to every mage. And I particularly think it's going to be insane for Fire because like Raiku said, don't really have any crazy snares. I think Blast Wave is going to be a good kind of suitable substitute, but just a spammable 60% snare if you have Frigid Winds on a 35-yard range seems kind of crazy.
I agree, it's completely nuts, I think, because if you can like Blast Wave the melees on you or into kind of cold, like you basically keep them slow the whole game by just rotating them too, and you can keep slow on like an off target, like the healer or the next melee, and there's no way for him to move. And if you pick Frigid Winds again, slow is 60% a slow without a cooldown, 35-yard range, it's completely crazy. You're gonna keep it at like 100% like it's going to be 100% uptime, right? The whole game.
Yeah.
And it doesn't really seem like a fire thing to me. It is like you guys said, it's like an arcane thing only, I think. And
Imagine being a healer trying to get away. You're just getting slowed every global with an 8-second dispel. Like you can't move.
no, you can't. It's really strong. I think too strong, to be honest.
Okay.
At first glance, I was definitely like, because I play fire pretty much exclusively, so I was like, oh, okay, that's kind of nice. But I actually kind of like trying to find like the little cool plays that you can make with like flame strike slow. I don't know. It's like a very slow, but you could actually find some value out of it. But I do have to agree with you guys that kind of seems like I feel more like I'm playing my warlock. I feel like if I'm just spamming like Curse of Exhaustion or something on someone,
Yeah.
it doesn't seem like a mage thing.
Okay, cool. That was my like first kind of gut like feeling of like, oh, kind of cool that we get as slow as fire, but maybe not so cool. And as frost, I don't think you'll even pick it maybe because you have so many other slows. But I mean, that's I guess another discussion. But yeah, so once again, I think maybe slow would fit better into arcane only. I guess we can start working down this tree a little bit. So we have spell steal as a talent. I mean, I don't see too much issue with that one in particular. I suppose ice block seems fine. Invis seems fine. Grounding Surge, the conduit, looks like it's staying. I guess that's fine. Yeah.
To be honest, this is my main problem with all the talents. Like, if you're going to talk like overall view, is that every conduit became a talent.
Yep.
Everything, like incantation of swiftness, invis movement speed. Like, what is this? Who's going to pick this?
No
It's
one.
it's a dead talent.
Yeah.
Grounding Surge is better in almost every
You'll
single
never
scenario.
pick it. Yeah.
Yeah, grounded surge only though is worth into double medias, I feel like, because healers, at least in current expansion, don't really cast all too much. It's kind of a dead talent as well. And I feel like even for PvE standpoint, like these talents are completely useless.
Definitely.
They're kind of useless in PvP, except grounded surge sometimes. But incantation of swiftness, like I don't see why it's there. It's same with like problem with like winter's protection to conduit right now, tempest barrier, divert energy, etc. It's just conduits.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like they have no place in being talents. I'd rather see something much cooler, like different than this, like almost anything else.
I think that's my main problem with the trees.
Yep.
Is there's too much passive, like all the passive defense people complained about throughout all of Shadowlands is just now 3-point talents that just bloat the tree and make you waste points, and they aren't fun to play against. They're not that fun to play with, or no fun to play with. Yeah, I think you kind of, like you said, Raiku. I mean, it's just there's so many of them. All of them stayed. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. So like just to like put it out there, I think the biggest problem with mages right now, we could probably all agree, is the tankiness. Like it's really hard to die. You have Blink's done on a 13-second cooldown. You have that Blink gives you a shield. You have Alter that isn't affected by dampening, of course. You get a shield every time you blink, et cetera, et cetera. All of that and more is staying. I think, Venruki, you actually did a tweet about that like, okay, we have the reduced cooldown of blink. We actually have a cumulative shielding, which is new. We have ice flows, which will make you even tankier because you can cast while moving. You have the block heal, you have Tempest Barrier, you have reduced magic damage. So it seems like all of these trees in the Mage tree are defensive abilities that are making Mage kind of toxic to play against in PvP right now, and we're keeping all of those. So from my perspective, it seems like getting rid of more of the defensive abilities, so mages are a bit squishier, and adding in more offensive options so that mages can feel more like the glass cannon that they used to be, would be a bit more fun to play as a mage, and more fun for enemies. Like if you're a warrior or a ret or like a demon hunter or a DK or a hunter, to play against the mage, because now you can actually hurt the mage for once instead of the mage just being invincible.
I completely agree, but also going to play devil's advocate here and say if you play Shimmer in the current meta, you're going to die every time.
Yeah,
like really fast actually.
Yeah.
The only thing that makes you really tanky is Blazing Soul, combined with like Divert Energy, Tempest Barrier. And you can just spam Blink on a 30-second cooldown. Is what makes you tanky, and you get a shield every time you press Blink.
Yeah.
If you ever met a Shimmer mage, the guy dies in 1 minute.
Yeah, no, I agree. I should have clarified.
True.
Yeah, it's really just old school like Blink Stun that makes you like unkillable. Yeah.
Do you think though? So I think over the course of Shadowlands, one of the things that's happened is because mages are so centered around combustion, and they're also inherently tanky. Like a lot of the nerfs that have come their way is actually to like a lot of the damage PvP talents and stuff like that. Like they've slowly just nerfed their damage over and over and over and over. So now it feels like you actually don't do any damage. At least that's why I don't like playing Fire Mages. It feels like you don't do any damage outside of your combustion whatsoever with a lot of the nerfs that they've made. And I wonder if we could ever get back to a playstyle where, you know, your greatest defense is like a good offense. Like you actually have offensive tools to win the game. You actually have damage to scare people away. You're not just like a tank that absorbs damage.
I agree with that to some degree for like Arcane and for Frost. I don't mind having one spec, so like Fire, where you have like the strength of burst, and then you have the weakness of you don't have much consistent pressure. Like I don't mind like one of the 3 specs being a bit more niche in that regard. Like you don't have much consistent pressure, but you can burst. Having said that, if you don't like that playstyle, it's freaking boring.
Yeah, but do you think Frost and Fire, or do you think Frost and Arcane are like that? Because I think they're not like that.
No, Frost and Arcane need a ton of work. Yeah, but I'm saying all 3 specs could maybe look a bit different. Like maybe Fire's the spec with not a ton of consistent pressure, but tons of burst. And maybe, I'm just throwing this out there, maybe Frost has like the options to do a lot more consistent pressure and kind of kill at any given moment if you get you know, the right procs with maybe something like that ability in Wrath of Lich King where if you get a chill, you get a proc that gives you Frost Firebolt, like something like that added in, which we can chat about later. But give Frost a bit more consistency throughout the game, and then Arcane might be more of like a wild card spec with a mix of the 2 or something like that, just off the top of the head. But it's like for me personally, I don't necessarily mind one of the specs being more bursty than having downtime, but it seems like all 3 of them feel that way, and all 3 of them feel like you do 0 damage always, unless you have Icy Veins with Nightborn, unless you're doing like a big Arcanosphere with Arcane Power, like Mitch one-shot or something, or you're doing a Combustion Goes. So I think having some type of consistency with at least 2 or 1 or 2 of the specs would be really nice.
Don't you think one of the main problems, though, why the damage is so combust heavy is because of Rune of Power, for example? Like, if they were to buff damage overall, then your combustion will be too strong, right? But they can't make your damage higher because then combustion will be even stronger.
True.
Yeah, and I think it's because of Rune of Power and Infernal Cascade, for example, the conduit. Like, everything's buffing combustion damage.
That's a good point.
Which means that every other damage you're doing has to be low by default.
I can't wait for us to get into our Frost discussion, and we could talk about, you know, Icy Propulsion and Thermal Void and you know, the 80 modifiers on Icy Veins. But yeah, 100%. But I don't know, like, they actually, so in the notes, they just unnerfed Incanters, which I think is like one of those things that's like a step in the right direction, right? It's
definitely.
Like, that really inherently buffs your consistent damage and nerfs your burst, which is nice.
I wonder if Rune of Power is still nerfed in Arena, though, because it's 40% like in PvE, and in Arena it's 30%.
Yeah, it's still nerfed, I'm sure. I don't think they changed that.
Otherwise, it will still be, because I don't think anyone enjoys to play Rune of Power. Like, I don't enjoy it as any spec.
I hate Rune of Power. It has no place in PvP because it, like, the fact that you have to stand still just makes it feel tilting to use always. I would much rather use Incanters for sure.
Yeah.
What about you, Aeghis?
Okay, I guess I'm the odd one out then. I kind of like that I can min-max my position, like. But that's just kind of like a habit from playing with Flame Cannon, I guess, you know, like I try to like set myself up perfectly to stack my Flame Cannon, but yeah, it's definitely boring. I have to agree with you guys on that.
Yeah, okay. Well, I mean, so it seems like, right?
Right. Just one last thing. I think it especially became brainless when they just made it so it happens when you combust, right? And a lot of the time you just stand still on your rune.
Yeah, and you try to find like that perfect spot.
Yeah. I think, man, Raiku, I think you nailed it, man. Like with Rune of Power, it automatically means you don't have Incanters for the rest of the game, but it also Combust gives you 100% crit and mastery based on your crit, and you get Rune of Power and you get Infernal Cascade. So it's like you're either 0 or 100. You're either nothing or everything. And it seems like with a Sub Rogue, if you guys have played Sub Rogue, like you can pop Blades or not. You can pop Dance and Blades and Symbols, or you could pop just Dance and Peel. You can pop Dance, Blades, Symbols, and Resonator if you want huge burst, right? And then you can even pop Echoing Reprimand to do even more, right? You have options to fit together into your rotation depending on like, is this just kind of like a whatever go, or is this a peel go? With Fire, it's either you're doing everything or nothing. and there's no in between. It feels like that kind of feels like the bottleneck of the spec for fire. And I guess a lot of the conversations that we're having are kind of based around current fire, and the reason is current fire and the Dragonflight talent calculator don't look too different, right? They look almost identical in the build that I think we might be seeing. We're gonna have shifting power. We're gonna have we'll probably have shifting power, Ring of Frost, Dragon's Breath, Combustion, Spellsteal, Alter. It's gonna be like the same spec. The big difference is we're gonna get slow and accumulative shielding, so we're gonna be even more tanky and annoying to hit. But we'll probably be losing Soul Shape and
Longer DB.
longer DB. Yeah, maybe is there
We
one
also
other
gained
thing?
Master of Time. Like
Oh,
That is
yeah.
actually insane, by the way.
yeah, Master of Time. That's one of
Yeah.
the ones I hate that everybody got. To be honest,
We're gonna
I
be
think-
so tanky with that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I thought
So
this was a
And
cooler
run
card,
casting.
like,
Another run cast. You're gonna be able to play regular blink. You're gonna have run casting. You're gonna have Master of Time. You're gonna have snare. You're gonna have blast wave. You're gonna have so many. It's crazy. Like there's so many things.
yeah, so I think the consensus so far for this mage tree is almost every single thing in the tree is defensive, and that's the problem with mages, is that they're too defensive. Like we're not like everything makes us tankier. And yeah, Master of Time. Well, I kind of feel similar with Master of Time. I don't know about you guys, but I liked that Master of Time was an arcane mage thing specifically. I think it feels weird to have that as fire. I think one of the abilities, maybe you guys agree or disagree, that would be maybe cool to see a return for all 3 specs would be Blazing Speed.
Yes.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So Blazing Speed, I think, actually, before I go there, what do you guys think about Dragon's Breath for all 3? Because I feel similar that Dragon's Breath feels really good as a fire ability, but for Frost and Arcane, maybe not so much. But the spot where Blazing Speed is at seems like a really nice fit for Blazing Speed.
I would
also,
love to see
Meteor
DB
also
move.
makes yeah, and Meteor as well for all the specs. I feel like they make no sense.
Agreed.
If I'm gonna play a
Yeah.
Frost Mage, I'm gonna DB Meteor someone. It's gonna feel like I'm trolling or something. In the game.
I tested it too. I did a little testing on the numbers, and it feels really bad. Even when you pick like Shatter and
Shatter?
stuff, like
Yeah.
using Meteor doesn't feel like it does anything. So I immediately like I might not even get Dragon's Breath, honestly. But yeah, it's crazy. Meteor doesn't. I feel like that should be a fire thing, personally.
Okay.
Me
Agreed.
too.
It's like as random if it's Comet Storm was there, like kind of thing.
Yeah. I
Another
agree.
thing I want to ask is, do you guys enjoy to play with like normal blink over shimmer?
I
would
like.
much
No.
rather play with Shimmer.
I agree with
Personally.
this. I would also much rather play with shimmer, because otherwise I feel like I'm waiting for my teammates to set up the CC, and I'm just waiting for them to do something. And I'm the reactor to them. Like I can't do
Yeah.
anything on my own. I'm just waiting.
I'm actually gonna disagree on this one, and I'll explain why. There's a couple nuances. I think I like normal blink
Do it.
better. The reason why, well, one, I think it shouldn't be a 13-second cooldown. I think normal blink works better when it's a 16 or 18-second cooldown. You can maybe even, yeah, I think 18 is probably like a good cooldown for normal blink. I think the reason it feels so OP is because we've had it down to like 12. The reason I like it is because you can save it defensively and save yourself to survive, right? And Mage should be squishier in a lot of regards. Like back in Kata or in TBC, they were kind of like glass cannons. Like you should be squishy, but have that blink to get out of the stun. But what I like about the talent is you can blink it aggressively, but you put yourself in a position to die. Or you can save the blink defensively and use it to survive. And I like choices like that. I like choices where you could like deep freeze, cold snap, deep freeze. Okay, well you wasted cold snap, your biggest defensive or one of your biggest defensives to kill. But I like that. I like this option to use the defensive offensively, and it sets you up to win the game, but it also means you could die. It's like one of those risky plays. And I think Blink really fits that, and I really enjoy using it. But I think the cooldown of 12 or 13 seconds is way too short, and I think having it paired with Blazing Soul is too OP, and then having it paired with Diverted Energy is too OP, and Shifting Power is too OP. I think it's too much stacked on itself. So there's like a lot wrong with it, but I do think I like that offensive or defensive choice that you can make.
At the
Yeah.
moment, though, it's like blink and cooldown is actually the best way to survive as long as possible. Like even blink pre-stuns just to get the shields.
Yeah.
That's actually how you play your target. You just press
Sometimes
Yeah,
I
blink
true.
and
forget.
Yeah, true.
You can use it for a break on stuns, because I just be using it for the shield all the time, bro.
Over and over. Yeah, I
Yeah.
guess so. I guess that's maybe even a bigger issue.
But the big problem with Shimmer is, and I don't know if people know this, but when Shimmer was introduced in Legion, it was 15-second cooldown. Now it's 25 per charge. Then in BFA, it was 20 seconds per charge, and now it's 25 seconds per charge. While normal Blink stayed the exact same cooldown the whole time. So obviously, at some point, Blink is going to become stronger like it became. Like now, people realize like Blink cooldown is so short, paired with the Conduit, of course, that Blink is just better always.
Yeah.
That comes down to just the conduit, right? Like basically going from BFA to Shadowlands, they pre-nerfed it because they wanted to add a conduit to make it better. Like literally that's what happened. So they took Shimmer from 20 to 25, knowing that there was going to be a conduit to reduce it. And then they nerfed the conduit. So you're just left with like a worse version of Shimmer from BFA after the conduit got nerfed.
But you know what my solution is? Instead of having all of this Tempest Barrier divert energy, it's actually to reduce Shimmer cooldown back to 20. I think would actually be better. It would be a nice balance where I feel like you could pick between Ice Flows and Shimmer, and Ice Flows wouldn't always be the choice.
I agree.
Yeah, I think that's a good point.
And also you wouldn't be tanker because like, you divert energy wouldn't shield you, or like your Tempest Barrier wouldn't, shield you as well. So I think the cooldown's too long right now, and I think that would be a good balance. Same with a lot of other spells, to be honest. Like the cooldown needs to be adjusted from previous expansions.
What do you guys think about Ice Nova in the general tree?
It's a little out of place.
Yeah, definitely a little out of
place. I think there's a lot of stuff like this in the general tree where like it's either in an impossible spot to where you can't get it because of all these 0 out of 3 talents that you're taking that are basically like hardly increasing your power at all. So it just makes it feel really awkward. Like these 3 at the bottom, Frigid Winds, Flow of Time, Diverted, like 0 out of 3 talents like that where you can't skip them. Like if you look up at like Cryo Freeze or Tempest, like they're 0 out of 3, but you can go to the next ability. You can avoid them if you want, but these 3 at the bottom, you're spending 3 talents for 0.5 off your blink, like every time. It just feels bad. I don't know if you guys agree with that.
Definitely, yeah.
I think it's too weak actually, the Flow of Time thingy. 0.5 per talent point seems too little.
We're getting like it's like the green version of the conduit,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not so great. One thing too with a lot, like even just like what kind of sucks is even looking at all of these talent trees, everyone looks at these abilities in the context of like how they kind of were in BFA and Shadowlands. Like an example is Living Bomb. This is kind of off topic, but like Living Bomb, Ice Nova, for example, they both kind of look at them in the context of how they were the last couple of expansions where they basically weren't tuned the whole time. Like they don't do any damage whatsoever. And I feel like moving into the next expansion, if they actually tune some of the abilities, there might be more of an interesting choice and more interesting builds and stuff. Like if Living Bomb did like similar damage how it does in Wrath of Lich King, maybe there would be an interesting like Flame Strike Living Bomb build that would actually be fun in PvP. But the fact that it doesn't do any damage at all, everyone just kind of writes it off. But maybe if they actually did tuning on it, it would be good.
That's a good
point.
The
reason that you have even the reason that you have to pick Living Bomb in that tree because everything else is so bad and it breaks the sea and it's just like that whole tree.
But it could be good for some comps, right? Like in like RBGs, for example, like maybe it would actually be good.
But I feel like for the last 2 expansions where no tuning has been done on that whole row is dead. There's no
I know. I'm trying to be hopeful. Like maybe they will tune it and it'll be good.
You press Living Bomb to keep people in combat.
I think that is a really good thing to bring up, Venruki, is that like a talent is can be good or bad, but it also just depends on the tuning. Like Blast Wave would be the best, ability in the game if it did like half of someone's life, right? It would be also like, same thing with Living Bomb. If Living Bomb was just like deeged and it's just like, okay, we're gonna wait for a Living Bomb to come up so we could do like Living Bomb goes or something, like it would be huge. But the fact that it does nothing and has a chance to break a blind or a sap or a poly or a fear, it's like, okay, I'll just won't press it then. It's like, okay, well let's not get super excited about that. One of the things that I thought would have been cool in the trees, so we talked a little bit about like a lot of the things that we didn't like maybe Meteor could be fire only, Dragon's Breath could be fire only, Master of Time could be arcane only. So it's like a lot of this tree seems like we could get rid of it. Same thing with Ice Nova, maybe Frost only. To talk about some things that we could add, we chatted a little bit about Blazing Speed. I think it would be really cool if we got an upgrade to Alter Time on one of the choice conduits or something. that made it like old school alter, where it saved your buffs and your debuffs. So you could do really cool outplays like alter time a Karma from a monk, or alter time Iceland's procs on Frost, alter time an unused trinket to keep it up longer. Stuff like that just like has really cool outplay potential that I think might be cool as like a choice node. Just one idea. I don't know. I think that would
Basically,
be fun.
having to choose kind of between an offensive alter and a defensive alter could be cool.
I love that type of gameplay. It's like I can block offensively or defensively. I can cold snap offensively or defensively. I can alter offensively or defensively. It makes the spec feel really like exciting to play. And it's like, well, if I use all my stuff, I can go all in like that. I think that's what made Mage like exciting in the first place, that you can like glass cannon all in someone. But then you might have nothing left. And it's like, well, how much do I actually want to use each go? I think, yeah.
I think that's a sick idea. I think that's really cool.
Yeah,
If that
well,
was possible.
I think it's one of those things too where personally I think alter time is overpowered defensively. Like I think it's kind of silly.
Should be
If
a
you don't
longer
have
cooldown for sure. Should be.
I don't even think it needs to be a longer cooldown. I think it.
Do you think it's
lasts
the
too long.
duration?
The duration lasts too long. I think it would be much more interesting if alter time just functioned the way it used to, where it did snapshot your buffs and stuff like that. You could use it offensively, but in terms of defense, mages weren't so ridiculous. I mean, if a team doesn't have an offensive dispel, it's extremely hard to take a mage down. But if it only lasted like 4 seconds, it wouldn't be so OP, or
I
5
agree.
seconds, it wouldn't be so OP defensively,
How
and then you
long
could
did
actually use it.
How long did it last
offensively.
in MoP? Was it 6 or 8?
I'm not sure.
I don't remember, but I think like to me like
Wasn't
6
10.
6 feels pretty good. 4, I would be okay with 4. It maybe seems a bit short. 6 seems pretty nice. 10 feels
6.
way too
It was
long.
6. Yeah.
It was 6.
6.
6
Yeah.
to me feels like a really nice time. And I also think the cooldown of 1 minute is maybe a bit short. It could maybe be 90 seconds on 6 seconds, but have that offensive use. Once again, seems like alter time with 10 seconds, 1 minute feels just purely defensive. Let's make it a 90-second cooldown for only 6 seconds, but make it a bit offensive too. Let's put some aggression back into Mage and remove some of the defensive. So,
or like you said, you could pick maybe like if you want offensive one or if you want this one.
Yeah,
Be a choice node.
that'd be really cool.
Maybe like the Blastway one, like you picked.
One thing I think is kind of funny is we kind of just totally skipped over mirror image and the 2 new mirror image talents. Like we just ignored them. What are your guys' thoughts on them? Because there's 2: reabsorption, where you're healed for 5% of your maximum health when a mirror image dissipates, so more healing, more tankiness, and then reduplication, when mirror image cooldown is reduced by 10 seconds whenever a mirror image dissipates. So how many you get? There's 3, right? So what is that? 30-second cooldown reduction. So it would make your mirror image a minute and a half, I think.
Basically, every general mage build that I came up with, I always avoided this left side.
Yeah, me too.
Like
Yes.
this left side is completely useless.
Yes.
Yeah.
The reason I avoided it as well is because mirror image, it's a decent defensive, but you have so many other defensives.
Pump. We need damage.
It doesn't do any damage. It only keeps you alive a little bit. But the problem with mirrors is that it can break a poly, it can break a blind, it can break a dragon's breath, it can break a CC, and that could lose you the game. So I feel like mirrors have hurt me more than it helps me, like 90% of the time. So I'd rather just not have the talent, because there's better defensive options and it can hurt you. So
100% agree. I mean, use it defensively, like for sure, right? For damage reductions, the only time you press it. But I don't know if you guys knew this, but in old expansions, if you /pet attacked, they would pet attack the target that you are attacking.
yeah.
Now, I think it's threat based, so attacks like the healer heals is going to attack the healer every time. So break all the CC on the healer, and yeah, I don't like pressing the button unless I have to press the button.
Exactly. And yeah,
Definitely.
100%. So it seems like...
Remember, like, did you guys... I'm sure you guys have played... I don't know if Aeghis has, but Raiku, Xaryu, I know you guys have been playing Wrath Beta, but Mirror Image actually does a little damage. And the fact that it drops target, too, is kind of nice. Like, you can actually use it. It drop target when, like, cleaves are on you or something.
There's a rogue about to press kidney. I just, like, mirror image and try to have him kidney the mirror. Like, that's really cool. A rogue's vanished
to ambush you. You mirror, you know, ambushes a mirror image. Like, that kind of stuff is really cool.
If there was something like that you could do with it and they actually did some damage. I think the problem a lot of us have with Mage right now is it does, like, 0 damage outside a go, and it has so many defensive options, and you're just kind of, like, sitting there. You wait for your team to stun everything. You do your damage, then you just reset. Like, it's just such a specific playstyle that you cannot get away from. And I think, like, kind of broadening it up by removing some of those options and giving some new, like, life into the tree. What do you guys think about shifting power returning to the game?
I don't think it's too bad because I think the conduit is actually what makes shifting power OP. I don't think shifting power at the conduit is that strong. I mean, it's not bad, but I don't know. It's okay. I think I don't mind it.
Doesn't excite me. Like it's
No.
like Not the only actually I like time anomaly. And I don't know if you guys know this, but they actually unnerfed time anomaly. So for some reason they pre-nerfed it at the beginning of the expansion where it could not proc your time warp. So it's just been even though Arcane has been the worst spec in the game, they pre-nerfed this talent, which could have actually been good, and it can randomly proc time warp for you. They actually changed that. So in the beta right now in PvP, you can actually proc time warp for 6 seconds with it. So you just either randomly get combustion, a fire blast, or time warp. So you just get bloodlust randomly throughout the game, which is kind of cool.
I mean, I like the talent. Like, I think it's one of the most exciting talents, to be honest. Like, it makes you have more like windows where you wouldn't maybe expect it, and also gives you one fire blast charge. Like, if you were to proc the combustion, which guarantees that your combustion would be like of value, if that makes sense, because it gives you one charge. You probably sit on one already most of the time, so the combustion like from the proc would still be good, I think.
Yep. Oh, here's one more thing I found out. So if you know how invisibility is a talent and greater invisibility is a talent.
Yeah.
Right now you can have both, which is like okay, but you can have invisibility. Like let's say you want to use your invisibility to just get in the fight.
Yeah.
And then you have greater invisibility as your wall. They actually cool down each other right now. So if you use invisibility, greater invis goes on cooldown for 5 minutes. And if you use greater invisibility goes on cooldown for 2 minutes.
That's probably
maybe it's a bug.
Probably a bug. I would hope it's a bug. Yeah.
Otherwise, it's like completely pointless. Like, yeah, it's not good.
My biggest problem is that, like, imagine if I'm gonna think from a PV perspective, like this whole left side that we just talked about, from like ice block to like even frigid winds and down, it's even useless for PVers. It's useless for us. It's useless for PVers. Like, no one likes this side. Like rigid ice, your Frost Nova you can deal more damage in the Frost Nova. For PvP, I feel like this is really useless. Frost Nova is like you root them to run away, right? Or like root them to cast a sheep or something, right? Winter's Protection, like Mirror Images, or this like new Mirror Image talent, Cryo Freeze, like they're useless.
There is like, just to play devil's advocate a little bit, like rigid ice, like let's say you're on Frost Mage and you Nova somebody, it's gonna allow you to shoot more lances into it and crit. Like maybe you'll get like an extra lance or two off. I still don't like it, but I could see like some use cases for it.
Your teammates can still break it, right? Like,
or it might even be good in Mythic Plus. Like, let's say you like drop a cone, like you drop like an orb and a blizzard on mobs, and you Nova them. Like everything's gonna crit more for at least a little bit longer. So there could be some value there.
When I was thinking about PV, I thought more about raiding, where I feel like this is hard useless.
Oh, in raiding, not so good.
I agree with Aegis though. It's a good point. The reason I didn't think about taking Rigid Ice is because your teammate's damage still breaks Nova. So if you're like doing a go on the premise of I want to do a bit more damage in my Nova, like there's a talent on the Frost Tree on the right bottom side, right middle side maybe, that makes your Ice Lances into actual like Novas, 10 or 20% stronger. But the problem is like your Novas are just going to break instantly to a DK or a Rogue or like whatever. So even if like I don't even know if it's ever going to give you an extra crit. So it just seems like a dead talent to me. It's like, yeah.
Maybe for like Mage Priest too, so I thought like this one and Shadow or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
So
is there...
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, go for it.
No, you go ahead.
I was just more gonna say a more general question. Is there anything else? Like for me personally, I thought the alter time kind of thing that we talked about to make it a bit more offensive, and blazing speed to introduce into the tree, and a lot of this other things kind of leaving. Is there anything that you guys specifically were thinking was missing from the general Mage tree before we move on to Fire, Arcane, and Frost specific trees? Like, is there anything that you guys like maybe hoped for, or maybe a new spell that has never been in the game that you guys like, oh, this might be cool, like a Frost Bomb, Living Bomb kind of a thing? Is there anything that you guys were looking for?
If I had to say something, like this might be controversial, but I thought Legion Season 1 Fire Mage was like super goated to play, because you had Shimmer and Ice Flows. I feel like you have to choose. It's a bit boring, but kind of cool if you can have both. Maybe a bit strong, but I think it's really cool. And you had the old Flame Cannon where if you stood still for X amount of seconds, you stack it up. It also works on Arcane spells. It was a lot of outplay potential, and like I feel like you had a lot of damage even outside of like bust windows and stuff. I feel like everything is packed into good choices right now. And that's my problem. There's so many like weird things like accumulative shielding. My barriers recharge fast while I have a barrier on me. I don't see why these are still here. Like there's so many other things I would want instead of these talents.
So what would you want exactly besides Ice Flows and Shimmer? Is there anything specific?
Blazing Speed. I love the Walls of Draenor. Blazing Speed, where you could press it yourself and remove snares as well.
Fast, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I don't like the like it's a random proc. It has a chance like when you get hit, it procs. I really like it when you can use it yourself.
Yep.
I think
Okay.
that was really good.
So we all seem stoked about Blazing Speed. I think.
Definitely.
Cool.
Deep as well, of course.
Now, and
Yeah.
like as to
Improved
where
count
you
as
would
well,
put it,
also.
or do you think that should be a general thing?
For Blazing Speed or Deep?
For MCS.
For me, I think I've had this idea for a while that all like Fire Mage should have Dragon's Breath, Arcane should have MCS, and Frost should have Deep Freeze. I think having all three would obviously be too strong, but I think each spec having one hard CC option is pretty cool. Like it's Arcane, if you want to MCS into a sheep, it's like cool. Now I can Nova MCS healer into a sheep. Like I actually have a way to get a poly without a DB. With Frost, you can deep sheep. With Fire, you can DB sheep. Alternatively, there's a way for each spec to burst. So if you want to try to like duel a healer and actually kill a healer before 90% dampening, you can MCS in as an Arcane Mage with your missiles and Arcane Surge and actually force a healer low and force a trinket. And then next time the healer doesn't have a trinket, you can maybe force a kill. Same thing with Deep Freeze. Dragon's Breath is a bit different, but that's how I've always thought of it. Each like Frost should have Deep, not Fire or Arcane, and Arcane should have MCS, and Fire should have Dragon's Breath. Each one should have one.
I don't mind every
curious.
spec having MCS, to be honest, but then Arcane can have like Pom Poly instead.
So
That's also kind of cool idea.
I mean, that would be cool, but that'd be pretty good. I mean, I would be not opposed.
Wouldn't be bad. Wait, someone in my stream goes, this stream and these guests are not biased. You need to go back to the beginning, okay? You missed the beginning.
You missed the beginning, yeah.
Yeah, you missed the intro, all right? But yeah, I don't know. I guess as like just like kind of a general thought, there's just way too many defensive options in the general mage tree. Like 100%. There's so many fun options that they could add offensively. I just feel like, yeah, and also I don't like certain spells like Ice Nova. I feel like as an Arcane Mage and a Fire Mage, you don't want Ice Nova. As an Arcane Mage, you don't want Meteor. As a Frost Mage, you don't want Meteor. Like there's a lot of these options to me. And here's another one. All right, Ice Ward. There's got to be something more fun than Ice Ward. The double Frost Nova charge, like Ring of Frost or Ice Ward. Like,
maybe
something else.
Ring of Frost or Deep Freeze might be a good one here. I think it would
Could
fit.
be.
It would fit well. It would fit well if people would use it. I think that'd be you would lose some CC to gain some CC in other aspects. I think it'd be nice.
That's what I like about Walls of Draenor.
Would you ever take Ring if you had mass polymorph though? Yeah, I feel like you would just always take Deep.
Yeah, but at the least, okay. So I will say this. At least it makes it so you can't double school. So you can't DB sheep get kicked and ring. So it would be a nerf in that regard.
Yeah, and it would also make it so you can't sheep one, ring one, unless you did drop Blast Wave for Polymorph. But Blast Wave seems pretty strong too. So.
Yeah, and also if you choose Mass Polymorph, you don't get Blast Wave, which is super good.
Yeah.
One thing I really liked in Walls of Draenor, by the way, was that like there was like you could pick Ring or Frostjaw. So like you would always pick Ring into like a residue team because he can obviously shapeshift your sheeps. And into like a Paladin team, you would pick Frostjaw. I think that would be a way, cooler option instead of Ice Ward, for example, like Venruki said.
Yep. Cool.
You guys think that would be too strong right now if we had DB, Frostjaw, and mass polymorph potentially?
D with 45% cooldown. I don't know how insane that is actually.
That's true. I forgot about
I would like to see.
It's a massive nerf. It's over double. It's crazy.
It's 18 seconds right now. Yeah.
So let's chat about this just for a second. So Dragon's Breath, very strong ability. I do think I'm in the camp where it probably could be nerfed. Right? It's super strong.
18 seconds.
Nerfing it from 18 to 45. Makes me scratch my head unless there's like a PvP talent that reduces it or something else that we haven't seen yet, or 2 set we haven't seen yet. I don't know. But the point is 18 to 45 seems too much. So I would much rather see Dragon's Breath not be available to Arcane and Fire, and then nerf it from like 18. Now it's a question mark to what?
30 maybe. 25, 30.
Yeah. I was thinking 24, 26 maybe for Dragon's Breath. Yeah. So it's you push the
maybe 30.
Max 30 though.
Yeah, max 30.
Max
Max
30.
45 is a great. I don't think people realize how crazy 45 seconds is. Like it.
Yeah, that's
It's like
a
right
every
great.
now-
third go almost. Yeah.
Yeah, and not only that, but shifting power is nerfed also. So it's like
Right.
your shifting power is nerfed, so your ability to reset it is nerfed, and also it's like giga nerfed. 18 to 45 is crazy.
Yeah.
Do you want guys go over like pros and cons of the new tree? Like, what do you guys think is good about like the mage tree?
But should we go over like fire specific first, or
I just want to know what people think is like good from the new mage trees. Like, what are people excited for? What do people think about the mage
out of
tree?
all of them, out of all the specs and stuff like that?
Just
Or
I think just
general?
for the mage tree,
Yeah,
not
like
fire
the
arcane.
mage tree. Yeah.
Okay.
I
'Cause for
am
me, okay,
not
sorry.
Okay, I'm pulling it up here for the stream. So this is the new mage tree. Raiku's question is, what am I most excited for? Well, really, there's nothing new except mass polymorph or maybe blast wave. So I guess I'm
Blast
excited for blast wave the most, or yeah, probably blast wave. But there's nothing new. So I guess the maybe the better answer is I'm not necessarily excited for anything on the mage tree. I mean, really, there's nothing to be super excited about. Now, if there was blazing speed, I would be very excited. Imp CS, very excited. Frostjaw, obviously very excited. Deep Freeze, very, very excited, right? There's things that would be exciting, but yeah, I mean, out of this, it's everything that we've seen and more defensive options. Blast Wave's defensive, Ice Flows is defensive, Master of Time's defensive, Accumulative Shielding's defensive, Improved Frost Nova somewhat defensive. Yeah, so Temporal Velocity is also new, which is defensive. So everything's defensive, which is the opposite direction we need to go. What about you guys?
I'll go next. I'm excited for Blast Wave. I think having like another, although I think it might be too much if you have like, I was thinking about for Arcane, for example, like you are going to be able to, let's say you can Greater Invis a stop, you can Counterspell a stop, you can Blast Wave a stop, you can Dragon's Breath a stop, you can Supernova a stop. Like you're going to be able to blink through a cast, alter time, blink again, reverse your alter time, blink again. Like you're going to be able to delay a lot of casts. And when stuff like that, we were kind of talking about it in my stream, but when you have that many like micro CCs for casting, it just means casters can't be good, right? Like casting specs are just going to suck because you're going to have, as a mage alone, Arcane Mage, you're going to have 6 stops for it. So that's just one side note, but I am really excited for Blast Wave. I think like knocking people out of position, like off a pillar, off a bridge, having some sort of answer for melee training you with an 80% snare, I think is really cool. Time Anomaly is another one, gives you like more consistent damage. Since like mages are so based on cooldowns and procs, like just randomly getting procs and randomly getting cooldowns and time warp seems good for like those downtime moments where you don't have all your cooldowns up. So I think Time Anomaly will be fun. And then Master of Time was like one of my favorite things about Arcane. Personally, don't think it should go to all the mage specs, but if it does, I think it'll be at least like a really fun thing for the mage to play with. Maybe not against the mage.
I agree. Like, I don't think Master Time should be for all the mage specs, but that's what I'm probably the most excited about. Just because it's like, gameplay wise, it's gonna add a lot, and I think it's gonna be really fun to use. But I agree with you, Vin.
Yeah, so for me, I kind of feel the same. Master of Time, Blast Wave. Actually, slow, I think, is kind of cool. It's going to be OP, though. It's going to be crazy OP with 50 wins. A 60% spam ball slow is going to be OP, but it's going to be, like, fun. And I like Time Anomaly, too, a lot. That randomly in the game, when you least expect it, you're like, oh, I got Combust proc. Let's go, And it's going to be a good bust. You can try to play around it. But in general, my biggest problem with the whole mage tree is all the conduit stuff. There's too many things that are too useless. Even for, like, a PvP point of view, raid point of view, I would just see anything else instead of all the conduits.
Cool.
Anything else, more choices.
Well, awesome. I think at this point we have really solidified like the mage tree and what we think, maybe what's exciting, maybe what's not exciting. So I guess let's hop into the fire first, because that happens to be all the buzz right now with the AWC and stuff like that. So we start off with Pyroblast, Fire Blast, and Hot Streak. For me personally, I don't know about you guys, I thought it was really weird to have to spend a point on Hot Streak and Pyro. Maybe that's just the direction they're going, and maybe I'm just not used to it. But I just thought it felt weird to not have Hot Streak by default as a Fire Mage when that's like the spec in itself. Like, why do I have to talent Hot Streak?
Yeah, it kind of feels like if you go and look at the rogue trees, right? Like they're not specking into like Eviscerate or like Shadow Strike and stuff. It kind of feels like you're doing that. Like I get that we're specking into baseline abilities and every class is doing that, but that just seems like too baseline, you know?
Yeah, someone just said, how would you even play fire without hot streak? Like it's
Yeah.
so embedded into the spec. It's like if it's something so fundamental, it's like, and you have to choose fire blast. Like how it.
Well, here's the thing: you literally
Fireball.
can't play fire without picking the talent. Like you don't have a choice. So you're right. You can't play it without it. You're
So-
gonna have to get it no matter what.
And that doesn't feel that good, right? Like that feels a little weird to like have to choose something so embedded into the spec. I thought immediately when I was reading these, I was like, that feels weird. You know, I think maybe that some of these things should be baseline, like hot streak.
Yeah.
What do you guys think about the not related to the tree, but what do you think about the Fire Blast spreading ignite?
Oh, that's a great. I'm so happy you brought that up. I think it's obviously like a PvE focused change. In PvP, if there's not a PvP talent that makes Fire Blast not spread on, not spread Ignite, if there's no way to make Fire Blast single target, the spec is kind of dead in something like RMP. It's just gonna, if someone's sheeped or blinded or sapped, or if it doesn't spread to CC targets, that'd be okay, I guess. But like, yeah, if Fire Blast is just breaking CC, that's pretty a big problem with this spec. I hope they've thought about that to make fire like okay in PvP. You can't have it spreading damage on your #1 damage ability. So,
well, it doesn't spread to CC targets. I don't think, does it?
I hope not.
Okay.
That I think would be fine, right? If it didn't do that, then I think it would be fine.
Yeah.
Still a weird change, but
If it does, it's good. It's like the Phoenix Flames at the moment. If you Phoenix Flames the target and the target runs into the guy who's sheeped, the Ignite bounces to that guy. Like I really dislike that about the game, and it's instantly going to break the CC.
What do you guys think in general about Phoenix Flames being this like kind of this cool talent that you can use, but it's AoE? So the times in which you can use Phoenix Flames feel like super niche. Do you guys like that it's like, oh, I can't necessarily use Phoenix Flames every go? Or do you think there should be some type of maybe focused fire ability that was introduced that would make it single target and deal more damage, or single target and maybe even deal less damage, or single target and not crit every time, or like some type of drawback or benefit to making it single target, so that you could have this kind of this option, maybe like a focused fire or something like that in a PvP talent or in like a choice node?
I always thought Phoenix.
Personally-
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Personally, I like that it's AoE because then it kind of just feels like another Fire Blast, right? Like an off global Fire Blast. So I like that it has niche situations personally. And yeah, I don't know. It kind of feels like at that point you're just punished a lot more or you would be punished a lot less for using your Fire Blasts kind of poorly. But yeah, that's my take.
I always thought Phoenix Flames would be really sick if it was like a way to not only spread your ignite, but so I want it to function obviously a little bit different. Like in Legion, it was a bit weird. All you did was use it as extra Fire Blast. But I think it could be actually really cool if Phoenix Flames was the thing that spread your ignite, not Fire Blast, but it like empowered it also. So like empowered your ignite and spread it to everyone, and you get kind of like a kata ignite playstyle where you actually like have a bit of like dot potential if you get your dots spread up high enough.
To be honest, I actually really liked how Phoenix Flames worked in Legion, where at the moment it doesn't crit right like Fire Blast, so you can't like Phoenix Flames Fire Blast Phoenix Flames, so it's going to drop your hot streak, which is not good. But Alexstrasza's Fury kind of makes up for like the whole Legion playstyle where Phoenix Flames now is always going to crit, and you can like rotate between both, so you can kind of like save stacks a little bit. Like you can Fire Blast Phoenix Flames, Fire Blast Phoenix Flames. I actually really like that. I think this is the coolest thing about the whole Fire Mage tree.
The fact that Phoenix is always going to crit now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely +1 on that. I when I first read it, I didn't read that it made Phoenix Flames crit. I was just reading Dragon's Breath for whatever reason. And as I read it again, I was like, oh, that's really cool, because you're going to probably play with Kindling, which makes your Phoenix Flames crit deal more damage. And you're going to play with Phoenix Reborn, which resets Phoenix Flames. So you can get more Phoenix Flames to make them crit, to reduce your combust, so you can do more damage. So it's like this kind of this rotation that works together. To be completely honest, the fire tree near the bottom center like kind of has some stuff that is like decently exciting. Another one that I'm excited to see return as Blaster Master. I thought that, like, it was just kind of fun to track your mastery stacks during and try to keep them up for as long as possible to min-max your damage. Wildfire we see returning from BFA. Maybe not like that exciting to use. We see Kindling returning, and Fiery Rush, which is kind of like that 4 set. And then Alexstrasza's Fury like reworked. So, I mean, to be completely honest, this is the most exciting stuff that I've seen out of all the 3 specs. Like, I'm not a huge fan of the Mage tree like we chatted about, and the Frost one I think needs a lot of work, and maybe the Arcane too. But a lot of this stuff seems okay. You know, maybe I'm being too optimistic, but
No, I'm 100% agree with you. I actually kind of like the Fire Mage tree, except the right side tree. I feel like it's really troll on most of the stuff. Not all of them,
Agreed.
but Conflagration, Improved Blazing Barrier, Flame Patch, Living Bomb, unless they make huge adjustments to the spell. Like,
Yeah.
all of this is kind of troll, but in general, kind of like the tree.
yeah, I mean,
Aeghis
what about
feeling-
you, Venruki? I mean, I think I kind of like it as well. I mean, I don't think it's perfect, but I think it seems like, oh, I have Fire Mind and Blaster Master and Alexstrasza's Fury in a way that I can kind of continue gaining charges and doing damage, and I don't know, seems all right.
My favorite thing about the fire tree, honestly, one of my favorite things about the entire talent tree in general is this ability, Tempered Flames, because I feel like it is a direction I think we need to go. And WoW, like if cooldowns are going to be so strong in PvE and like raiders and people in Mythic Plus like that, I feel like there has to be options to nerf your cooldowns for more consistent damage. So Tempered Flames, where basically you don't fireball anymore and your filler spell is Pyroblast, gives you a lot of casted damage. I think there could be a lot of synergy with some of the talents, like Fire Frenzy, for example, the bottom right, as well as like Pyroclasm, where if you're getting off these Pyroblasts, you can get procs to make them hit super hard, and you can get random combustion procs. The only thing I hate about it is I feel like it's way too punishing. Like, so what it does is it reduces the cast time of your Pyroblast, increases the crit strike of your Pyroblast, but it nerfs the duration of combustion by 50%. But the problem is with a lot of these random talents like Sun King's Blessing. So Sun King's Blessing, after consuming 8 hot streaks, your next instant pyro can grant you combustion for 6 seconds. That's also nerfed. So it's only a 3-second proc. And Time Anomaly, instead of getting combustion for 5 seconds, you get it for 2.5.
Yeah.
So I think
It's actually how it works, though. I asked you this, I remember.
I didn't test it. So maybe I should test that.
So a guy on my stream said it wasn't. From P point of view, this
Oh,
wasn't
I
what
trusted you.
No, I asked you a question, to be honest. But
Okay.
a guy in my stream yesterday said it doesn't work with this, but I'm not so sure. Because if it doesn't, I actually really like the spec. Instead of basically you replace your Fireball on a keyboard with Pyroblast.
Yeah.
And you spend Pyroblast the whole game, and you get the benefit from Sun King's Blessing to get the random Pyroblasts, or the random combustions, Time Anomaly for combustions. You play Pyroclasm for insane pyro damage. I think the spec could be really fun, like a caster, like Mage Lock type of build, where you sit
Getting
back
some, like-
and you spam Pyroblasts.
And
What
Fire
about-
I'm
Frenzy
getting some
too.
BFA vibes from that.
Yeah, you can literally get Fire Frenzy and Sun King's Blessing and just not even get Kindling. So you just abandon Kindling, you don't get Tinder, you don't get Wildfire, and you're just proccing Combustion through Time Anomaly and Sun King's Blessing and Fire Frenzy. So you're just randomly proccing all these combustions over and over
Man,
and
that
over, and you're getting
sounds
procs. Like, it
Kind
sounds
of unfun to fight.
Well, I mean, maybe, but it sounds fun to play, and I think it takes fire away from, like, kind of like a scripted combustion setup that a lot of mages don't like. I mean, I personally don't like the way fire plays right now, so I think a bit of a playstyle change, for me at least, would be fun.
I think this is great because Fire Mage at the moment is all about instant damage, but this will make it more into caster damage, and it will also be greatly benefit you to cast, and you can play Fire Mage in more caster comps instead of only playing Fire with melees, which I think which could be really fun. The only drawback about this spec is that your unused combustion is a hard stack 2-minute cooldown. Because Pyrokinesis, the PP talent, won't work because you won't Fireball and you're not playing Kindling.
I was just
but you
gonna
get those random combos instead.
I was just gonna mention that, like, so if you're spamming Pyro, you're not spamming Fireball. If you're not spamming Fireball, you won't get value from Pyrokinesis, which means like your actual combust is gonna be longer.
I think that's a fair trade, though.
I might be trolling. I mean, I think combustion duration with Kindling seems like just a much stronger build, because you're gonna have combust on a super short cooldown, because Kindling is based off Phoenix Flames crits, and all of them crit now. and Fireball reducing combust even shorter. So I think combustion duration might just still be a better option with kindling and kind of building it how we've seen in the past. I think I've said this before, but I don't hate Fire Mage current design. I don't maybe love it, but I like that it has the strength of burst and the weakness of no consistent pressure. But I would like to see Frost and Arcane have some upsides, right? Like, so Frost to have some type of consistency, and we'll get into that with the Frost tree. But I guess I don't mind like the single target instant cast kind of play style of Fire. I would like to see maybe some redesign with Frost and Arcane, which we'll chat about.
Well, I actually just like that. Oh, you can go first. Okay. I mean, I really like the diversity of this build because if you're playing, you can play Caster Cleave in this build, and I think it's really good. I think what Xaryu is saying though, like for like an RMP or something, you play the normal build with the Tinder, the Kindling. But also if you're like playing an RMP and you're facing Caster Cleave, maybe you could go for like more of a hard casting build yourself. Work great in like BFA with a greater power spec into like Mage Lock, for example. But I think it's good that you have options, and I think like you can change talents in the gates if I'm correct.
Yeah, you can do presets
like you have
and
this,
swap between presets, I believe. Yeah.
So I think that's actually really cool that there's different kind of playstyles that you can swap, and I think that's exciting, to be honest. It changes up the playstyle for Fire Mage since like Legion.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm not saying that it's necessarily going to be a better or a worse build, but I just think it's nice that it's changed. Like there's options.
You like that you have the option to switch up.
Exactly.
The
there's
whole
not
thing.
one way to play. Like you can actually there's a couple viable builds.
Yeah.
Now I guess we can get into like some of the things that don't make a lot of sense in the Fire tree, or some of the things that at least I'm a little disappointed with.
Okay.
We can start with Improved Scorch. I feel like the execute talent is a lot less interesting than it used to be, and I probably won't even ever spec it.
I don't think it's a very good talent.
Isn't this a problem though? The Scorch in this expansion is hitting for 300 damage though.
Yeah.
Like it hits nothing.
When I first read Improved Scorch, I was actually kind of like, oh, that's cool. You know, you can actually use it to like build up more damage before it go or something. But yeah, then it's the 30% health part. So it's like maybe it's salvageable if you just make it to where it's just Scorch. If you just Scorch the target, then they take increased damage. To like remove the health requirement could be interesting.
I think where this comes from is they didn't like the execute. I mean, this is just me guessing. They don't like the execute in PvE, where basically all you do is just Scorch, Fire Blast, Power Blast over and over and over and over and over. So maybe they wanted you to like have to do more with your rotation.
The execute is still there.
The execute is still there.
Instead of Fire Starter, you can choose it.
Yeah.
Like right above, you can choose Searing Touch or Fire Starter.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess it.
So that's why this doesn't make sense that it has
it's a really weird
requirement. Yeah.
Improved Scorch, if it got rid of the health requirement, I think would actually be interesting.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
That's a good point. Yeah, that would be interesting because you could like Scorch before a go, and it's just like, okay, cool, now I have a bunch of damage and I have a reason to press Scorch. It's actually funny, I have Scorch on my keyboard down to 3 because it's been that way for like ever, but I actually never press my 3 keybind because you just never use Scorch in current Mage. And so like I get the question on the chat all the time, like, why do you have Scorch down to 3? Like, you haven't seen you press Scorch. I mean, you use it sometimes during Combust if you want a single target crit for like quickly, but most of the time you just never hit it. It is kind of funny having it there.
Very rare.
Yeah, I would like to see like an actual use case for Scorch, and that would make it usable. Like if you got some type of Scorch debuff that you used to get on people before you bursted. And that's something that I think, like, I don't know about you guys, but I kind of miss about like some of the older school versions of Mage, like getting this debuff up. Like a lot of the times like in Mop, you would get Incanter's Flow with your mana shield, and then you would like Nova with a living bomb into the Nova, so it would crit, and then it's like, okay, they're like primed and ready to go, now let's do a go. And I kind of miss that like preemptive like setup versus like you can like with current Fire Mage just go to 0 to 100. There's no setup. There's no like your enemy's not like, oh, I have this debuff on me, I have to watch out. It's just like Combust dead. You know, it's just triple CC, DB, kidney, blind, Combust dead, and it's just like so quick, and it's like, oh, it had no setup. Like the Rune of Power was casted with the Combust. That like there was just no setup in the build at all. You know.
Yeah,
I agree.
Also, this Improved Scorch thingy, I think it was PP talent in Legion where it give you movement speed when you press Scorch. I would play it into a lot of melee cleaves a lot of times because it would be hard to get away as a fire mage into melee cleaves. But now you're gonna have slow, blast wave, cone, etc. So it's a bit overkill, I think, to have like all of this if you're gonna be able to kite.
This movement speed is still baked into that improved Scorch talent, but it's only Scorch crits.
Yeah, now it's Scorch crits. Before it was every Scorch.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Can I one more thing? I want to like take it one step back. What do you guys think about Cone of Cold being a 50% snare? Because I'm like really bummed out about it.
Instead of
It was always a 70%, right?
It was a
Always, pretty much.
70% snare, and now it's 50%.
that actually
And
went over my head. I didn't see that.
It's
One
a
thing
huge
I-
nerf.
One thing as well with Cone, which has been like a problem, or not a problem, but like been for a while, is that it only lasts 5 seconds. And the cooldown is 12 seconds. If you go back to like an old expansion like TBC or Wrath, you can keep your Cone up the whole time.
Yeah.
Now it's such a long downtime, but maybe that's good for the game.
I was gonna say that does sound like it would be very unfun to fight if it was like same CD, same duration, but
The
But
game.
now you can basically rotate Cone and Blast Wave the whole game, though. You can like Cone, Blast Wave, Cone. Because it's 11 seconds of slows, and your Cone is basically back up then.
Yeah.
wait, Blast Wave lasts 6 seconds.
Yeah, so you could Cone, Blast Wave, Cone, and then you would have like a small gap where you spam your slow or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The game
Yeah.
is interesting now. Sorry, go ahead, Venruki.
No, I was just gonna say, like, I see people in my chat saying, like, imagine wanting to have a 24/7 AOE slow, LOL, but like, your melee range is a mage, right? Like, in the past, you used to have like, I don't even think it's that crazy when you think about it in the context of like rogues having, poison throw or the whatever it's called, where they can put range crippling poison on you. Like everyone has snares. It's not like it used to be, where like you could just permanently kite a warrior. They're gonna be able to get to you. They're gonna be able to snare you.
I was gonna say that same thing.
changed a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing. It sounds really OP, but when you fast forward to like 2022 WoW, and you don't think about it in the context of like Classic or something, a warrior is gonna like charge you infinitely if you have the Fury recklessness charge thing, right?
Or like a monk with Keepers, or demon hunter. He's gonna be able to actually.
Every class like can either break the slow instantly as a feral druid, or like Tiger's Lust with roll port. Like mages don't have infinite kites. The problem with mage, I think, is that it's not that they can kite well, because you can't. I mean, you can kite okay, but it's that you're so tanky, right? It's just that you can literally just stand still and get flame cannon stacks and have like 2 melee hitting you, and you're just like chilling, right? I would rather move to a play style where, like you said, like Cone of Cold is back to where you can keep it up a lot of the game, but man, if you got hit, you're taking damage, so you have to kite well to survive. You're like a glass cannon essentially. You have to kite well to survive, but if you get hit, you're gonna be in trouble.
I feel like this is a problem though in like 2022. Like you have to be tanky as a caster these days. The only casters that do well are tanky casters, like Demo Warlocks, Fire Mage, because there's mobility creep in the game, right? For every expansion, people have more and more stuff to reach you. And they can't just remove like Charge, Fell Rush, Monk rolls, because people like, Spear. If someone spears you, you have to be able to live the spear, right? Like you have to be able to press the altar, or you're going to die, right? In the spear. Like I think this is a huge problem in like most cases where people think that casting is a good thing for the game, but you cannot cast them well. You
Yeah,
will
you
never
can't.
be able to cast again.
Well, that's what I was.
That's true. Yeah.
That's how I
Yeah,
feel
nev-
about the Pyroblast spec that we were just chatting about it like 5 minutes ago. Is that like it sounds kind of okay, but maybe if you're enabled by a Destro lock.
It's comp dependent, right?
Yeah,
Like,
if you're enabled, then maybe. But it just seems like, man, casting in current WoW it's just not the
Omega
same. It's not the same as it used to be, where you could cast in like Wrath or TBC, and like if you got a Frostbolt Shatter combo, someone goes to 50%, and it's hard to heal up. It's hard if you get someone to half life, like they're half life.
Serenity.
They're not just gonna instantly top themselves. There's not something that they can just go to full HP. Maybe a Nature Swiftness, but from a Dresser Druid or something. But then that's like the big cooldown. I think casting feels a little.
I mean, this is the problem with Frostmage, right? Like if you're gonna go into Frostmage, like Frostmage only works with when the structure Warlock is insanely overpowered, right? A Warlock is insanely strong because the mage needs room to cast. And if you play anything else as Frostmage, you're hard useless. You cannot cast. Everything is built into Frostbolt only because people, like the community, they were like, Wrath Frostmage was great. You cast a Frostbolt, and then you deep them and they died. these days you cast Frostbolt, you get kicked, you can't block, you die. You blink away, the guy leaps on you, press a spear, you die. You cast again, you get kicked again, the guy fell rushes to you, he Kiefer's, monk roll Kiefer's, you die.
Yep.
Like you cannot, yeah.
Yep.
So this is the
The
problem
difference,
with Mage. Like for the last 2 expansions, I fought like ton of ice. Like they tried so hard the last 2 expansions to make Frostbolt like the only button to press as Frost Mage. At the moment, Frostbolt is your main source of damage. In the BFA, you had ton of ice, main source of damage. Apart from this, you were hard useless.
mm-hmm.
But there will never be a thing in WoW again where casting is good, I think. And like because they won't prune mobility, they won't prune interrupts from classes. So you kind of need like a Fire Mage design or like a Demo Warlock design.
Yeah.
What's interesting though is like in Wrath, like because you did mention Wrath, how Frostbolt's good. Frostbolt is good in Wrath, and I feel like that's kind of how it should be. Like if you're a caster and you're left alone, you should be a little bit scary. So you maybe you go after the caster a little bit to kind of slow him down. But at least in Wrath, like Cone of Cold doesn't do 1% of someone's health. When you're being attacked, you get Ice Lance procs that actually do damage. You can deep freeze people and like silence the healer, and that you can like get people off you and actually attack them. Like when you Cone of Cold, you get brain freeze procs that actually do damage. Like your spells actually do damage. The problem with Frostmage now is you have instant damage spells, but none of them do anything. Like when you Ice Nova someone, 1% of their health. When you Cone of Cold someone, half of 1% of someone's health.
Even
when
in
you Comet Storm,
Icelands.
even Ice Lance, it doesn't do anything.
I think
I
like
feel like this.
the fun thing about Frost in the designs that I liked, like I really liked Mop Frost. I really liked Cata Frost. I didn't like Frost going into WoD. I know Raiku has a different opinion on that. But that's just my opinion. But I think the thing that I liked about Cata and Mop Frost is that you had orb that wasn't like this huge giant orb, but it was like a little orb that did a lot of damage and gave you procs, meaningful procs that did a lot of meaningful damage. So if you did an orb in a spot, in a kidney shot or a deep freeze or like a Hammer of Justice, and like Hammer of Justice with an orb with like Frost Fire bolts with some Ice Lances, like that is huge pressure, right? So you would kind of set goes around your orb, and at some point along the way they made orb bigger and do less damage. So where orb doesn't actually like do anything in terms of damage, and it just breaks CC because it's so darn big. And on top of that, when it gives you a proc like an Ice Lance proc will do like maybe 2% of someone's life with no modifiers, and then if you modify it up, it can maybe do like 4 or something. It's just not in Mop. An Ice Lance modified would do 20% of someone's life, so 5 lances would kill someone 100-0. That's it sounds kind of OP, but 5 globals, 5 seconds. That's slower than like combustion damage, or that's slower than marksman damage or enhanced it. Like it's not like you just insta die. That's 5 globals, 5 full seconds. So yeah, I think meaningful damage into Ice Lance, Frost Firebolt, or Flurry is fine, I suppose. And an orb like makes Frost really exciting. I guess should we wrap up fire? I mean,
yes, we should.
Yeah. Okay, so I mean the fire. I'm on my stream. I have the tree open that I think might be pretty good, just for like an RMP style. I think a lot of us. I don't want to speak for you guys, but I think had the consensus of fire it feels like maybe my favorite tree. It seems like you have some options. You have the instant cast spec. You have the hard casting spec like Venruki talked about. You have a lot of kind of exciting things, and it seems pretty similar to how it is now, but you have maybe a bit more options. And I think if we're gonna be optimistic, fire seems maybe like what I'm most excited for. So if you have anything else to add, we can move to Frost now.
I liked all the like specific trees like Frostfire and Arcane. To be honest, I feel the biggest problem is just the Mage tree.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah,
the Mage tree is not good at all.
Because it kind of seems like what Rocky was saying earlier about how like casting is dead or whatever. It kind of seems like, I don't know, maybe it's just the way I interpret it, but the direction seems like that's kind of the direction we're headed, like with the Flurry thing being instant, the orb thing, and then there's like that Frost talent that makes all of your Ice Lances, like there's a lot more modifiers for your Ice Lances. I think as Magi became instant now, I don't know, it kind of seems like the direction is more towards instant damage, at least.
Kind of has to be. One last thing, one final thing I want to say about like the Fire Mage tree. I think the right side is it's never going to be played in PvP.
The right side needs some work.
Yeah, like this is like a dungeon build or something like that, like dungeon talents maybe. I don't even know if that's true, but like there's certain talents. Like I'll give you a perfect example. So on the 8 talent point required with like improved Scorch, critical mass, cauterize, flame on, like you have an option between Flame On and Improve Blazing Barrier. No one's ever like, Flame On is one of the most fundamental mage talents for fire, and Improve Blazing Barrier is literally a meme. So it's like that is just no one will ever pick this for any reason. So
I would definitely like to see like DB, like if I wanted to give some, like actual change, like you could move DB over there at some point, and then maybe have like, I think this is a thing with a lot of specs, is like a lot of them have like an improved version. I feel like it's a really safe option to like make an improved version of a spell,
Yeah,
So-
I mean, that's what I thought we were gonna see is Dragon's Breath in the fire tree somewhere, and a choice node that makes it
or a choice node.
45 seconds, or a choice node that reduces it to 30 seconds, right? And it's a 30-second cooldown with a 4-second disorient, or a choice node that like increases it to 60 seconds but makes it an AoE stun or something, right? I'm just throwing that out there. Like you could have this option like shorter cooldown disorient or longer cooldown stun, or I could keep the baseline spell. Now I have a choice, right? I think that would be super cool with Dragon's Breath.
They did something similar to like that with Shaman Astral Shift too. They increased the cooldown by 30 seconds and then give you this really fun decision, like, do I want more damage reduction or longer duration but shorter
Yeah,
DD?
I saw that. That was cool.
I think stuff like that is very fun and like there should be more of that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
I agree.
I think Dragon's Breath as a little AoE stun on a longer cooldown would be fun to mess around with. I don't know, like a
pretty fun, yeah.
like a leg sweep or something. I don't know.
Yeah. What? I have one more question for you guys. You guys play a lot of Fire Mage here. I feel like the
That's
odd man
true.
out a little bit, but Cauterize. I'm thinking it's a little crazy. Like I feel like they
I
could
would-
change Cauterize to be less, just like auto bubble type thing, and make it actually like kind of interesting, like something different.
Personally,
Like-
I would give up Cauterize for like blazing speed.
I think it would be way more fun, personally.
Yeah.
Would you pick it though?
Get rid of Cauterize, and then you don't have to pick. Like, I personally feel like having cheat death is kind of nuts. And I think it's one of the things that makes Fire Mages like so tanky. And maybe you could argue that they need it. I think it's a hard argument to make at this point in in this expansion, but like I don't know. I've never been a fan of like these buttons that just let you pinch your cooldown so much. I mean, the only thing is like sometimes you don't want to overlap your block and your Cauterize, so you'll pre-block before it procs. But I don't like the safety net of Cauterize on a class like Mage that's supposed to be like kind of a glass cannon.
Even for like raiders, though, I feel like a lot of people when they progress raid, they say they kind of have to pick fire for the Cauterize, just to, like, you get further in the fight. Maybe they can soak something specific because they have like a second life. It
Yeah.
kind of locks them into a spec as well, which is, maybe not so fun for all the mages because they have to stick with like one specific spec, even if it does sometimes worse damage.
Yeah. I think what if you had to activate Cauterize? Like you had to press it, and
I
then
would
like
be
you had like a
totally-
3-second window.
I would be totally fine with something that's not passive that you have to press. I think in general, like passives versus like having to preemptively use something, I would be willing to give up Cauterize. I don't hate the ability. I also don't love it for the reasons that you mentioned. I'd be willing to give up Cauterize if they kind of got rid of all things on that level. Seed, resurrections for holy priests. Obviously they got rid of auto bubble for paladin. They like getting rid of all kind of cheat death mechanics like that. Having said that, I don't like hate it as much. Like absolutely hate it. I mean, it's a 5-minute cooldown and you can like block before to save it and stuff, but I don't love it either. I guess I'm kind of just like, yeah. I wouldn't mind it reworked, but
I don't like when I'm supposed to global a Fire Mage and he just Cauterizes. That's what I don't like.
yeah.
But if I'm on a different spec, I get global and just die. Like,
Yeah.
that's it. That's cheat deaths are for tanks.
Yeah.
All right, we can
All
move
right.
on. Sorry, I just had to say that.
No, I'm happy you did. Frost Mage, like, yeah. So briefly looking at the talents, Aeghis, I think you nailed it, man. Like, there's a lot of more single target stuff. Like, it seems like maybe you could build around it. It just depends on modifiers. How Venruki mentioned, it's like, well, is Iceland's hitting for 300 or is Iceland's hitting hard enough to actually be meaningful? Same thing with Orb, same thing with some of these abilities. How are they modified? I don't know about you guys, but one of the most excited things that I read was Wintertide. Just like increases Frostbolt damage and Fingers of Frost empowered Ice Lances deal 30% increased damage to frozen targets. This looks like old Mage Mastery, where it's like, okay, I can just do bigger Ice Lances to frozen targets, and of course bigger Frostbolts too. But like, I want a way to be able to do like Orb Ice Lance goes and actually feel scary. Like, I haven't been able to feel that way in so long.
Yeah, didn't you like test Focused Frost? And like I know it's like on Alpha, so like, you have like no gear or whatever, but like isn't it still like just only hitting for like 300 or something? Orb.
Oh yeah, so Focus Frost, it says NYI, so not yet implemented. So it's not even in yet. But yeah, Orb is literally ticking for like less than 1% of someone's life, and it gives you a proc that does like not meaningful damage. So I think Frost might have the potential to be fun. I would love to see like a choice node or maybe a PvP talent for Frozen Orb. I was actually thinking, I don't know if you guys would like this, but an option to make it into a dot, kind of like an old school Frost Bomb, that you put a Frozen Orb dot onto someone and it ticks super hard and it makes it like kind of scary for other people to deal with. It's like, okay, I can Frozen Orb, put the dot, I'm going to get procs, and I can just nuke into that. So you don't have this scary thing of like, oh, it's just going to break Fear and Poly and Blind and Psychic Scream and like everything. Or making Orb, you know, a lot smaller, but making the damage a lot higher. So we can have kind of like this old school Orb feeling in PvP where I would just love to see Orb buff to kind of how it used to be.
My whole problem with Frost is though the same for the last 2 expansions. I feel like when I'm looking at the Frost tree, unless Ice Lance is doing a crazy amount of damage or something, I feel like this is just an all-out Frost build, and you do some random Ice Lances here and there. And it's the whole problem again where it's almost impossible to pull off in Arena unless you're playing with a Warlock. Like when I'm clicking the talents, I'm only going things that increase my Frostbolt damage. Maybe I'm like scarred from like the last 2 expansions. I'm picking Ice Veins talents, you know, Thermal Void, Slick Ice, everything that increases like Ice Veins and Frostbolt basically.
I think looking at the talents, there is kind of a world where you could play like a Lance build with Icicles, because it seems like there's actually a lot that actually empowers your Icicles.
That's what I was thinking, yeah.
So you could play like an instant cast build where you're, you know, spamming out a lot of Ice Lances. My biggest problem with this tree, and there's not that much new in the tree, so I mean we didn't really go over it exactly, but it's not that many new things. I think the change first off to Flurry is really good. Like I think the Flurry change, having 2 charges, and not being completely RNG. Like it's a bit RNG to reset it, but at least you get one that's going to consistently activate. I kind of like when you use your Icy Veins, you're going to get a Brain Freeze and Fingers of Frost. Like I think that talent's pretty interesting, but
yeah,
a lot of them I'm not a huge fan of. Like I just don't like my big problem with Frost and how it functions right now is you basically all these talents. So you have Icy Veins, then you have Icy Propulsion, and then from Icy Propulsion you go down and you play Slick Ice, and then you have Improved Icy Veins, and you have Snap Freeze, and then you're going to get Thermal Void. And basically those middle talents, like that middle like tree, once you go down from Icy Veins, you get all of those below it. All of those talents just make it so your whole class is Icy Veins. Like you're just Icy Veins, and then outside of Icy Veins you don't really do anything. And that's exactly how it is right now in Shadowlands. And it's really awkward because what ends up happening is if people like line of sight your Icy Veins or run away from it, you just don't do anything.
Yep.
Like it's just like Deathborn. You pop Icy Veins, you pop Deathborn, people go behind a pillar, and it's really, really awkward because it's like an all or nothing moment. It's like if they stand in the open, you instantly kill them, and if they run away, then you do nothing. And it's like really, really unfun. I kind of wish that. I was going to say the same thing. It's kind of the same thing for PvE as well, where it's like people don't like it in raids because if there's any downtime in the raid, it just screws all your damage. Because in order to do damage, you have to have infinite like you have to keep casting over and over and over to extend your and lower the cooldown of Veins.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it was really fun when we had more options, like maybe for Orb to make it like maybe smaller or higher single target damage or this or that instead of all the modifiers on the Icy Veins. I think it was really cool in the past when you could kill every orb. Like once an orb is a 60-second cooldown, once a minute, you could do some very meaningful damage. Like very meaningful. And especially when you had Deep Freeze, you could Deep Freeze Orb and spam lands. You're doing a lot of damage. You can MCS if you have it out of that and then alter time like a Frostfire Bolt. The playstyle was incredibly fun. Now it's a 3-minute cooldown Veins. 3 minutes. And whenever someone sees Veins, they shut you down, line of sight it, and then you don't have it for another 3 minutes. So it's not like just like the 60-second thing where it's like, okay, I'm gonna orb this go, and then next go will probably be like a mini go, and then we'll orb again, and then next go I'll have orb and Veins, and then Veins was kind of like icing on the cake. Like every 3 minutes I could just also pop my Veins to make it a bit stronger because I have more haste. But now it's just the whole build is Veins. You shut it down, then it's over. Yeah, so I would love to see like Frozen Orb, kind of like Frozen Orb playstyle come back, empowered damage from Frozen Orb come back. Like it could even be like Fingers of Frost procs from the Frozen Orb are empowered to deal 50% increased damage, right? So your Frozen Orb specifically is what's giving you that power. I also, yeah, it just seems like also like Water Elemental we haven't been able to really use in quite some time, like Lonely Winter.
Yeah.
With Frostbolt, Ice Lance, and Flurry. I mean, I maybe I'm being a bit too negative. Like there are some things about the tree, like Shatter Rank 2 is kind of cool on the upper right. It's not yet implemented, but Shatter increases your chance to crit by an additional 25. And if you add that to normal Shatter, it's basically like you're almost gonna like 100% crit chance, which I think is how Shatter should have like almost always been. Like that's pretty cool. I do like that Snap Freeze talent. Like it's all right. But yeah, I think in general, like the fact that you're on this, like you're tied to this 3-minute cooldown, like you're married to it, and it's not much you can really do outside of that, kind of feels bad.
I feel like there's a problem with Frosto for a long time. Like it's just, as I said, it's just ice veins. Like you basically around your ice veins, like Venruki is saying, people are gonna CC you in it, or they're gonna run, and you're doing nothing without it. And I feel like this is the biggest problem. Unless Frostmage gets insane instant damage, like from either Ice Lances or Comet Storm, and Ice Nova doing insane amount of damage, I feel like Frostmage is going to be really hard to pull off in an arena setting. Like, because I just don't see it. Like, this is my thing with Walls of Draenor. I know Sorry doesn't like Walls of Draenor Frostmage, but I feel like Walls of Draenor Frostmage had like a jack of all trades. If you were able to cast, you did good damage. You had double stack Ice Nova, which were doing huge damage on the goes. If you waited out both stacks, you had huge damage. You had your Orb, you had your Blazing Speed, you had your Deep. Like, you had a way to get your own CC while having like the option of doing instant damage and casted damage. At the moment, I feel like everything is just Ice Veins Frostbolt. There's nothing else to Frostmage. And I just don't see it being good in like 2022, 2023, and like at least a high level.
I think to add to that, I think if it was good, it would be the most boring thing to play ever. You sit on the pillar and just reset your veins. It's just the most boring play style you could ever think of. You're just pressing one button for 90% of your damage. And on top of that, it's the most boring thing ever to fight. Because you're like, if you're fighting, say in a meta game where Frost Mage Demo Destrolock, like Holy Priest becomes like a really good comp because maybe Frostbolt is just super strong and Destros are super strong. In that meta game, like no one's having fun fighting that either. The Frost Mage is bored because you're just casting one button, literally one button, and then the enemies are bored. Like no one's having fun, right? So I think redesigning it to where it's like a bit more like you have goes, you have options, to where like the Frost Mage is having fun, and the people that are fighting it are like, okay, like we can also have fun too. Like it's not just I'm sitting on the pillar dying to a blizzard, and then an orb, and then the orb resets the blizzard resets the orb, and you orb again and blizzard again, and then no one can move, and then
this was like the Legion Frost Mage, blizzard orb. This was, in my opinion, the worst designed Frost Mage ever.
Ugh.
You just blizzard and orb, and then you ran away and you did the same thing over and over, and you had no damage. You were hitting for nothing. And sometimes you could even bolt every 45, and it was like a one shot.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just to kind of build on, go ahead. Sorry, I missed that.
No, yeah, you go.
I was just gonna say, just to kind of add on how ridiculous Icy Veins is, and like all the conduits and stuff for Icy Veins. I was explaining this to my stream earlier. Like abilities and talents like Glacial Spike, like on live right now, if you pick Glacial Spike, you lose. It's better to have no talent than Glacial Spike because of how good Icy Propulsion is. And Icy Propulsion actually got buffed. It's actually better. It's like the equivalent if the conduit was like 350 item level or something like that. Because at max conduit or max item level right now, it's only 1.78, and with 2 points, it's 2 seconds. So it's even better. You're doubling down at Icy Veins even more. But I just think there's so many like frost spells that just don't do anything. Like that's my biggest problem with frost is you're so all in on the Frostbolt. Glacial Spike does no damage, Ray of Frost does no damage, Ice Nova does no damage, Blizzard does no damage, Frozen Orb does no damage. Like, none of your spells do damage, and that's not an exaggeration. Cone of Cold does no damage. There's like this talent right here, Snowstorm, for example. Look at this modifier. So Blizzard has a 30% chance to increase the damage of your Cone of Cold by 6%, stacking up to 30 times. I guess, it's more than that, right? If you put in the talent points, what is it? Is it 20%? I think, let's see. Let me see really quick.
20%, yeah, I think.
Yeah, it's 20%. So it's a 20% modifier that stacks 30 times. So that basically means Cone of Cold has to do 0 damage. Like, as a base, it has to do no damage because there's a modifier that increases it by, such a ridiculous amount.
It's a good
600%.
point. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Otherwise, it would be like a complete one shot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
otherwise it'll just
Mhm.
one shot. So you have Cone of Cold. The snare got nerfed on it. It only lasts 5 seconds, and also it does 0 damage whatsoever. So
it has to be bad, is what you're saying. Like it's
it
forced
literally has
bad
to be.
by
Yeah,
default. Yeah.
exactly. Because of all the modifiers. It's just like how Pyroblast has to do no damage and Fireball has to do no damage, because with all the modifiers, it's gonna do too much. But yeah, I guess it kind of comes down to like tuning. I mean, maybe there's a world where like Glacial Spike is good, but I don't know. I think Frost is basically going to play the same exact way as it did
so
in
too.
Shadowlands.
I
Even
think
the same comps, I think, will work.
same
for Mages as it
comp,
does
same
now.
style. You'll almost have to be paired with another wizard. Like, I don't know about you guys, but I really miss like Frost Mage Feral Druid, Frost Mage Warrior, Frost Mage Rogue, Frost Mage melee, right? Like, it was a
Melee caster
really
healer, yeah.
melee caster healer with Frost was so fun, but you can't have it revolve around Frostbolt only playstyle without any of your instant casts doing much damage and everything being AoE. Like, that orb being so big and doing so little damage, it just makes it not really work. So
It almost seems like there needs to be like a build like how fire, you can turn fire into a caster build now.
yeah,
It almost feels like there needs to be some sort of like design. I don't know how you would go about it, but some way to make Frost the, instant cast build.
yeah.
I personally think there needs to be consistent ways. Like, there needs to be ways to get Ice Lance procs, and then outside of that, it needs to be a little bit less frequent that you get them, and they need to do more damage. Because the way Ice Lance works right now is you get so many procs. Like, you just get proc after proc after proc after proc. Like, if you're playing like Venthyr, for example, you get 100 procs in a row. Not many people play Venthyr. Like, you drop an orb on a bunch of pets, you're just going to get infinite procs of Ice Lance. And that basically means it's the same kind of principle. If you have that many procs, they can't do damage. Otherwise, you're just going to kill people instantly, right?
Yeah, it's a good point.
So Ice Lance
good
does
point, yeah.
inherently super low damage because you can just get way too many procs. And I think it would be way better if you could actually like pool procs and then burst someone with them instead of just like ice. Like, this is a comparison that I like to make. Like, right now, current Frostmage Ice Lance hits about the same as Lava Burst, except Elemental Shaman can shoot 10 at once to kill people, right? And your Global Starve does the Frostmage, just like slapping people for 6k damage, 7k damage, which is like really, really underwhelming.
Like, if I were have to change the Frost tree, if we're going to talk about like what changes we can make, I would like Ice Nova to be closer to where Comet Storm is on the tree, because I always feel like those two aligned really well. Because if you comment and then, like, if you comment Ice Nova, your comment's going to crit, right? Because it counts as they're rooted. So they two aligned has always worked extremely well together, I thought.
Yeah.
And the thing is that Ice Nova for the other specs feels so meaningless to be there. Like, as we talked about before, for Fire Mage, Archimage, I don't think Ice Nova really belongs in the Mage tree. It should be like, in the Frost tree, I think, close to Comet Storm.
I completely agree. I'm personally not a huge fan of like the whole Comet Storm Ice Nova playstyle. Like, that's why I wasn't a big fan of WoD. But if you are gonna make it based around Comet Storm Ice Nova, I think a really cool way to do that would be to add some type of choice node that or empowerment or PvP talent that made Ice Nova deal more damage but single target, and similar with Comet Storm. Like, Comet Storm deal more damage but single target. I think one of the reasons it's so hard to use those abilities in like Feral Mage or Warrior Mage or Rogue Mage, like a lot of these caster melee comps that we were talking about, is like it's gonna break your Warrior's Fear, it's gonna break your Rogue's Blind, it's gonna break the Polymorph right next to the guy, and you just want to actually be able to use that Comet Storm or the Ice Nova like kind of how you want to. But if you had this talent that made Comet Storm deal 100% increased damage, but it's only on one target, or with Ice Nova, then you could maybe like spice up a build like that where you do have it meaningful. Personally, I would rather see the damage baked into like Flurry or Frost Firebolt, Ice Lance, Orb, and kind of get it back to like the Kata style or Mop style. But you know, if you do want to keep those, like I think that might be a decent way to do it.
Yeah, or do the Walls of Draenor system where like Ice Nova now has 2 charges, maybe like just anything more for instant damage for Frost Mage I think is really required to make it work.
Man, Ice Nova and WoD did like I think about 20% of someone's life, and you had 2 charges. So if you Ice Nova in the Ice Nova, someone it would be to 60% life, which you know isn't that strong. It's pretty strong, but it's not crazy. But now Ice Nova only has 1 charge, and it does what, like maybe 4% of someone's life. Maybe
3%.
Maybe 3%. It's just crazy. Like if tomorrow if you saw the patch notes and it says Ice Nova now deals 100% increased damage, you would read that and be like, okay, like it's still like nowhere near enough, right? Like it's gonna hit for like 5% of someone's life. It's still like not gonna do enough meaningful damage with as much heals and defensives in the game. So yeah, it's interesting, like how much. Like back to your point, Venruki, at the start of the discussion, it's like some of these spells maybe just need to be tuned. Like they haven't been tuned in years in terms of like how much damage they do in PvP. Like I think Frozen Orb, like Frozen Orb's a great example. Why is it just not hitting for anything, you know? And then why is Frostbolt? I think also to piggyback on what you're saying, Venruki, like Frostbolt needs to be weak because there's 20 modifiers for it to make it so it can crit for like in current Shadowlands, it can crit for almost like 26k or something. But normal Frostbolt does like 1% of someone's life. But you can modify it to also hit for 26k. The fact that like there's that much disparity in one ability, like I don't know. Like baseline, maybe it should be hitting for like 5%. So if you're like Frostbolting, it's pretty hard. And then maybe make it so it can crit up to like 15% of someone's life. You know, like that might be like fine. But like, yeah. If you stack everything, if I'm saying, but man, yeah, it does like either nothing or like everything, and I think that might be one of the roots of the problems.
But isn't this the whole problem with like the whole design of Warcrafts like the past 4 years? Is that everything is just a modifier? That's why you can't buff anything, because everything has to be built into your one shot. And if anything does too much damage as out of your one shot, it's too broken.
Yep.
Because then your one shot does even more damage. And I feel like this is the same for every single spec in the whole game.
So you have to nerf cooldowns and buff abilities. I know, Venruki, you've said that like 1,000 times.
I've been saying that for a couple expansions, yeah.
Yeah, so like,
that's like a whole nother discussion.
That's a whole nother discussion, but it is true. Like I think it's important we talk about it. Like it seems really potent for Mage. Like if you have Icy Veins and Necro, you're this like untouchable god that's just spamming out Frostbolts on like 0.1s, and it's just like, whoa. And if you have Combust up, you're just like going wild. If you have Arcane Power up or Arcane Surge, which we'll get to here in a minute, you just one shot. But outside of that, it's nothing, right? So I think that's how we're feeling. Do you guys have any closing thoughts on Frost before we jump into Arcane?
My closing thoughts on Frost is that it needs more like a jack of all trades. It's too limited to one playstyle. Like if Veins pump all out, you're god. Like you're the king of the arena for X amount of seconds. People will run away from you. Like you can't do anything about it. People run. They will CC you. They will not tank you. They will never tank your damage. It will never happen, right? It almost never happens. If they tank, you win. If they don't tank, you sit there, you wait another 2 minutes, you pop your Veins, you're a god for like a few seconds, and that's your whole playstyle. I think it just needs some more of like a broader way to play the game. It also needs a way to reliably land CC. I think the problem with Frost Mage is that like you don't have a deep, you don't have a Frost Jaw, you have no way to really like land a CC unless like the enemy healer is like almost running into you.
I think that kind of like, it's ever since the spec just became all AoE, right? I think one of the worst changes they ever made to Frost Mage is Blizzard being a placement spell that has no cooldown. They can have 100% uptime with it instead of like a channel. I think Blizzard, like pinning people at the pillar, like if you're like, I'm sure you guys have been there. I've been there. You're at a pillar, you're getting blizzarded, you're getting frozen orbed, and even though they do no damage, the fact that you're just like 70% snared and getting frostbitten and your whole team's like getting cleaved down, like it is really unfun. And it doesn't even feel that good as the mage either. So I mean, I think that they should personally, and I think it's also one of the reasons why Orb got a fat nerf is the fact that Blizzard ticks reduced the cooldown of Orb. It was like, oh shit, mages are getting Orb too fast. gotta nerf that. Orb's gotta do less damage, because otherwise in Mythic Plus, when people pull 30 mobs, they're just resetting their Frozen Orb, and it's just gonna be 90% of their damage, OP. So as a consequence, Frozen Orb doesn't do any damage, unfortunately. So I would like to see them put like a target cap on Frozen Orb. I know PvEers would hate me for that, but I think Frozen Orb needs to do more damage. I think Freezing Rain should not be, or I think Blizzard should not be, like the Freezing Rain talent where Blizzard is instant is just like, it's kind of like oppressive. And I think because mages don't have like any, like Raiku said, you don't have any way to actually push in and close out the game. The automatic playstyle of a Frost Mage is just run away and snare. Just snare and run away. Dampen every game. Yep. is your best bet. You just literally just run away, snare, run away, snare, run away, snare. Try to win with Icy Veins, but they run away, so they're back at the pillar getting Blizzard and Frozen Orb. They're having no fun. Like the whole spec is just not fun for anybody. When you have your cooldowns, people are behind the pillar, and when you don't, they're just snared, and it's just like, yeah, it's a mess.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, Venruki, because yeah, I think Blizzard having the 100% uptime in a Blizzard, meaning you cast it and it keeps it down, is not fun for people fighting a mage, because you're just like, if you're on the pillar, you just can't move. And then yeah, the play style that works well for Frost is trying to not die while running and kiting until dampening is high enough to where you'll passively win through Blizzard, Orb, and your partner killing stuff, and maybe a couple Frostbolts get lucky and they hit 26k. Like, that is not fun for the mage at all. Even if it's viable, even if it's good, there's metagames in which, I mean, we saw Cloud9 do it for a very long time. There's metagames in which it's very strong, but no one loves fighting it. And I don't want to speak for everyone, but I don't think many people like playing that way. It's just this really anti-fun build where you just run and live and run and live and run and live and slow and run and live, and you can't actually, like, you can't push in and do a setup, because that's not how the spec plays. If you do that, you'll be punished.
Okay, I'm actually going to say the opposite now. It's extremely annoying to fight a comp like, Mage Lock, where you're just running away, you're being snared, like you run it open, you're going to die from the Frostbolt, Chaos Bolt. But it's actually extremely fun to play. It's fun to be like a tower, like you're like a turret. The guy leaves the pillar is going to die. It's actually really satisfying to play when the enemy team is running away from you. I've always felt this way.
I think there's a world in which like an MLS is fun, but it's not. It was like the MLS in like maybe Kata or Mop. I think those versions of MLS were pretty in God Comp in Mop and in Chat Replay and Kata, and there was comps like in versions of those comps that were fun, where you would try to set up triangle formation to where if someone pushed in, you could kill them. But it's gone astray with 100% orb, Blizzard uptime with no damage, and where you're just kind of like waiting for dampening to get in. Because MLS in Kata, you could still win the game relatively quickly. You could burst and still win the game with a deep freeze, kind of like AoE fear, deep freeze, orb Blizzard, orb deep, spam Icelands setup. Like you could still shut out the game. You don't just play back and wait for dampening.
Dude, it's so funny. Abilities like Frozen Orb, they're so like, they do so little that like most Frost mages, they just gates open, run into the middle of the map, just shoot a Xaryu Orb, just miss everybody and just drop.
I do that.
Drop your instant Blizzard. I know. You're supposed to. I mean, you just get an instant Blizzard from it. It doesn't matter if it hits someone anyways. It hits for 200. Like, it doesn't do anything,
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I think Frost needs some changes. I don't like the whole Icy Veins thing.
That's kind of what's like kept me from playing Frost pretty much ever, is that it's one play style. Like what I actually kind of like, back to like the fire tree, like about how they added a different play style. I don't know, sure if they did that on purpose, adding like a caster play style. I would definitely like to see that kind of melt over to the other specs too. Not to say that the caster
melt over.
yeah. Not to say that the caster version of the caster playstyle should disappear. I think that should still be around as well. But like you guys said, my closing thoughts really are like more utility, like some kind of Frost unique utility to help them close out games, and just a different playstyle too. Like I've never been a fan of like Frostbolt spam personally. That's why I play Fire almost exclusively. So yeah.
Oh, one more thing. What if summon water? Like for me, I hate permanent pet. I really like when water elemental was like. I know we hate cooldowns, but I kind of like when water elemental was like a cooldown that actually did damage and was like scary.
Yeah,
and like,
I like
when you
that.
used Pet Nova, you got fingers, and like it was like oh shit moment that was outside of Vayne's.
I agree.
Like
I would definitely agree.
I would love
And
that.
wouldn't that kind of also bring it away from Vayne's? Like Vayne's would still be kind of that long cooldown that it is, but then you would have something to press in between, you know, that would still actually be meaningful. So I think that could be
Tying that back in too to like what I said at the start of the discussion was you could then cold snap for a second water ellie, and if you cold snap for a second water ellie before you blocked, it's like kind of this play where it's like I'm gonna trade some of my defensives for more damage, and that's cool. I think that's cool that you can make that decision of like I'm gonna snap for a second welly now. I'm gonna dismiss my welly, snap, get another welly just so I can Nova, just for 2 more lance procs, just so I can finish out the kill. Like I love that type of play style. I don't know about you guys, but I think it's so cool to be able to play risky and to put everything on the line to get the win right there. And then if you don't win, you're like, ah, shoot, like you know, I just wasted all this, and it's like high risk, high reward, and I think having welly on the cooldown with cold snap like really like worked well with that.
One thing I want to bring up that Venruki was talking a bit about before, like about this frozen orb, like target cap, like it has to be low damage because the Mythic Plus there would be like, way too much damage, right? It's like it would literally kill everything if it was too overpowered, right? The problem though is that like I saw Liquid Maximum like tweet this that he thinks the talents like would look great for PV, or they could or should look great for PV, but they cannot because PvP consideration. And I think, like you said, sorry, maybe there should be like a talent that increases orb damage by like 200%. But I almost feel like they need to go back to the Legion system because where it's like a PvP specific tree almost. I think it's too hard. Like there's too many hard, useless things for PvEers, especially like raiders, like the Tempest Bear Divert and everything like this. It's too hard to balance, like the orb things, the Blizzard things. Because in one aspect of the game, Mythic Plus, Raider Arenas, it will be way too strong.
You could always make a PvP talent.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what about concentrated coolness? What if you just did something with that?
Yeah.
I mean, at the moment, concentrated coolness increases like frozen orb damage by 10%. It would have to be
what if you just up?
3,000%.
Yeah. I think
maybe not 3,000. That might be a bit crazy, but
3,000. No,
3,000.
3,000 seems perfect to me. No, I think PvP talents are a way in which we can do that. I think,
but there's only 3 choices though. I feel like there's not enough if you want to do so many things. Like, should there be one for Blizzard? It increases Blizzard damage by 300%.
You know, I don't know if you guys ever played Lost Ark, but they had this really cool system where most abilities were just about the same in PvP and PvE. But if you moused over an ability that was different, it would say PvE and it would have a tooltip that said the PvE tooltip. And then in PvP, it would have the tooltip. And a lot of the times, like, it would not have the stun or attached to it, or it would include a stun attached to it if it didn't, or maybe there was a target cap in one or not the other. And it was very easy. You just moused over the tooltip and it showed the PvE tooltip and the PvP one. And if you had PvP always enabled, I think like in a battleground or whatever, it would just show only the PvP one. And if you were in like a raid, maybe it only showed the PvE one. So it wasn't like confusing really at all. But that would be really cool. Like in Blizzard, in PvE, maybe it's not channeled, in PvP it is, or like these talents could then just change based on if you're in PvP combat or not. Like I think
that would be awesome.
Maybe moving toward yeah, that would not be for this expansion. That would be 1 or 2 down the road. But a system like that might be like a better mechanics to fix the problem at large than just PvP talents, to where we only have like 3 or 4 slots to do interesting things. It almost need to be for like everything, right? But yeah, we should probably move to Arcane.
Yes.
So we can wrap this up. If you guys want any closing thoughts, you can. But I think
we covered it.
Cool.
Yeah.
So Arcane. I don't know about you guys. I've been playing Arcane, and once again, just to mention what you've been saying a lot, Venruki, is like a lot of this comes down to just like how much damage are you actually doing. Arcane missiles on the alpha actually deal meaningful damage with clear casting with missiles, and it's exciting. It's fun. Like, it's fun to be able to press missiles and actually just kind of own with clear casting missiles, and to set like, okay, I have some things that I don't like about Arcane, but just to start off on a positive note, I love how you get a clear casting proc and it's exciting. You know, it's exciting. You're like, ooh, I got a clear casting. I can kind of own with this. Like, I can kill here. I love that feeling of like, I can kill here, you know? Like, as Frost, it almost feels like you just like never get that. I think Arcane Surge, maybe I'll let you mention it, Venruki. You're the one that told me about the downside of Arcane Surge.
So so basically Arcane got a big rework, for those of you that don't know. And one of the things that got reworked is instead of having just arcane power as your cooldown, you have a new ability called Arcane Surge that dumps all of your mana and does burst. And then after it dumps your mana, you gain arcane power, which gives you bonus spell damage and also crazy mana regen. Now, there is something on the alpha right now where that is dispellable, but I want to give Blizzard the benefit of the doubt and say that's just like they just haven't had a chance to like code it, because I think it is a different buff name. So hopefully it is undispellable. Otherwise, it's going to be really bad. Like you're basically going to use your burst cooldown because it brings you to 0 mana, right? Like whole idea is to dump your mana and then you regen all your mana. So if you dump all your mana and it gets dispelled and you don't have any mana, you're kind of a potato. So yeah, hopefully they make it undispellable. But I actually, to be honest with you guys, out of all the specs, I think Arcane actually seems the most fun to me so far.
I said the same thing after playing Alpha. Like Arcane seems like even as like Rogue Mage, if they do keep DB, like you can still DB sheep. You have huge missile damage. You have huge instant cast damage with Touch the Magi being off. There's no cast time with Touch the Magi. It's instant now on the talent. So you can Touch the Magi, Palm, Arcane Blast, and then Arcane Bombardment got a huge buff. So you can Barrage, Orb, Barrage again, Orb again with a second Orb, and then Barrage a third time. And that's not even including missiles. So the spec actually feels really cool with double Orb, with instant Touch the Magi, with huge missiles, and with Surge. I don't know why they got rid of. I don't know how much I love Surge and how much I love just getting rid of arcane power altogether, but I love all the other stuff.
Doesn't it kind of seem like it could be the fact that you don't have that button that makes you do damage? It's just like your missiles do a lot of damage because clear casting, you have the 2 orbs. It's like you actually have a lot of consistent damage that's kind of outside of cooldowns. And maybe that's why that seems like it's the most fun. Thoughts?
What I like is that Orb has 2 charges on a 20-second cooldown. Touch the Magi, 45-second cooldown, meaningful damage. Palm, 1-minute cooldown, meaningful damage. Missiles, Arcane, improved clear casting. Clear casting can stack all the time pretty easily, and it does meaningful damage. You can get meaningful damage procs through Palm outside of CDs. Like every go, you can do something. Like touch the Magi, Palm Blast is big damage. Like missiles is big damage if they have no kicks. Barrage with Arcane Bombardment is big damage. Barrage with Orbs, huge damage. There's lots of ways to do huge damage without Arcane Surge, by the way. And then Arcane Surge is like a one-shot, so I know Mitch Jones is going to love that one. But yeah, I mean, I'm excited about Arcane. I think overall, like the Arcane tree, I agree with you, Venruki. It seemed like probably my favorite. I think the Arcane Harmony double orb kind of style is going to be pretty darn fun to play. It'll be pretty cool. I mean, I think my biggest problems is that like Master of Time is for all the specs, Slow is for all the specs. You know, I think there should be stuff that's still only Arcane, but overall, like it seems like it plays pretty fun.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like Arcane has like the most balanced way of playing the game compared to everything else. Like it's not combustion only, it's not like ice veins only. You have good caster damage with missiles. Not sure about, does Arcane Blast hit hard?
Decent.
It's okay.
Yeah, it's not.
But that's pretty good. If it hits okay, that's a good thing, I think.
Well, it's great because Touch the Magi is instant. So Touch the Magi, Palm Double Blast is good damage. It really is. Plus, then you can follow it up with Barrage, which is an additional 50% damage, like with Arcane Bombardment, into an Orb Barrage. So it's a lot of damage. It's pretty cool.
Also, Chrono Shift, I think, is one of the best spells that ever was introduced for Arcane. It feels so good to play with as well.
Chrono Shift is fun. It is fun. Maybe not fun to play against, but it is fun as the mage.
I always found Chrono Shift to be very like, what's the word? Like, it contradicts itself, you know? Because like you're trying to maintain your stacks so that your abilities are always doing more damage with the 4 charges, but then you kind of always have to be throwing it too to like.
I think that's what's cool though. It makes it so it's like as it makes it kind of hard to use in a really good, meaningful way. But yeah, it's kind of cool.
Yeah, someone made a good point. You're gonna be able to use Chrono Shift and Icy Flows, so you're gonna be able to sprint around and get cast off, which might be fun.
Yeah. That's a very fun playstyle, though. I feel like.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that is.
Yeah, but that's kind of what we want, right? Like a playstyle like this, where you're really mobile and you can like do a lot of instant damage while doing good cast damage.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's get into, we just talked about all the things that we do like. Is there anything in particular you do not like about the Arcane tree? Because there is a lot for me.
I'm
I don't wanna
interested to
start,
hear your
though.
thoughts. No,
You want me to go first?
okay. I mean,
No, go
you're
ahead,
the arcane guy.
Raiku.
Okay, I can
Yeah.
say a couple of things. I feel like it's the tree, like how the tree is built, is like really weird. I feel like it's really hard to get like certain things on the right side because there's also so many things that you don't need. Even like getting Conjure Mana Gem, I feel like it's such a useless thing to get, and I
Yeah.
don't see why you would ever pick it.
Well, it gives you
won't
a
pick
spell power buff, like which I thought was kind of cool and exciting when I read it on the release notes. I was like, oh, cool, Mana Gem is gonna have a use again. You can use it as an unused trinket. But yeah, there's just no way you're gonna be able to get that. So no one will ever play with it.
Well, it's in direct competition. So you have, if you just look at the tree, you have Conjure Mana Gem, okay, which is 10% mana restored, 3 charges. And then you have Cascading Power, which is when you use your Mana Gem, you get 5% spell damage for 12 seconds. That's in direct competition with Evocation, okay, Evocation, and Siphon Storm, which is way more damage. It's way more mana, way more
Oh
damage.
yeah,
It's
that's a good
infinitely
point.
better.
I never
Like,
saw that.
why would you ever pick Mana Gem than Cascading Power ever in a million years compared to the other two?
I mean, I guess it's instant
Yeah.
cast, like, but yeah, even if you got 2 ticks off of Evo, it's better. Or 1 tick. So
Yeah.
The one thing though I like about the Arcane Tree is I feel like there's almost always something useful to pick if you want to go a specific path. It doesn't feel like you're just picking up too many filler spells, in my opinion.
yeah. Everything, yeah, that's a great point. Everything feels meaningful. Like Resonance, okay, cool, that's exciting. Enlighten, that's exciting. Chrono Shift, very exciting. You know, Prodigious Savant is okay. Illuminated Thoughts feels
Really
good.
bad.
Arcane Charges further increase mastery effectiveness for Arcane Blast. It's not like
So it's 20% increased on your existing mastery. So if you have 5%
Oh.
mastery, it gives you 1% more mastery.
Okay.
okay. I thought it was
Yeah,
just an
that's-
actual 20%.
That would be very good. That would be 20%. That would be insane.
That's what I thought it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
But still, like a lot of these things, like Illuminated Thoughts feels really nice. Like improved clear casting feels nice. Amplification feels great. Improved counterspell or improved arcane missiles feels great. Like there's a lot of stuff that just feels like really like exciting to spec and to use. Like it just feels exciting, and when you play as an arcane mage, I think it follows through. Like when you play it on the alpha, it feels exciting to press some of these buttons in sequence.
It's really good. The only part I disagree with you about is I think Rule of Threes. So Rule of Threes is one of the worst talents that's ever.
Yeah. Oh,
like,
and you need to get it, huh?
you have to pick it, and it's actually in PvP a damage loss because it prevents you from getting clear casting. So even though it gives you a
Oh.
little mana efficiency, it actually makes it so you can't generate clear casting procs because you're not spending any mana. So it's actually like you're literally going to need to make a macro into all your abilities to cancel Aura Rule of Threes. So it's like a talent that literally does nothing.
That's a
it's
great point.
hindrance.
That should be moved down. Yeah, for sure. That's a really
Just removed.
yeah, because you kind of have to get that because you need imp missiles, you need improved Priz Barrier, you need improved Arcane Barrage. But yeah.
Yep. Yeah. The only other thing I don't like, and it's a little better now just because of how Arcane Surge works, but yeah, both Rule of Threes and Arcane Familiar were basically dead talents for 3 expansions in a row that nobody played, literally nobody.
Yeah.
And they're mandatory in a way because this talent actually seems super fun, Arcane Tempo, but I'll never pick Arcane Tempo because I
Never want
I
the
don't
other
like,
two.
Yeah.
You have to pick Arcane Familiar, yeah.
Yeah. And and maybe it's okay just because it actually, I think it does make Arcane Surge hit harder. The only other weird, you talked about Chrono Shift a little bit, Aegis. This is the most bizarre one for me, Foresight. So Foresight is a prereq for Chrono Shift, which is you stand still for 10 seconds and then you get to cast while moving for 4 seconds, which is like Chrono Shift
the worst
is,
thing ever.
yeah, Chrono Shift
been
is you
on-
want to be moving around the whole game, and then Foresight is you want to stand still the whole game. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, it's just a straight PvE talent. Let me just take a moment here and just say, I agree completely. Rule of Threes feels out of place, and Arcane Familiar feels out of place. That excites me in a sense because that's an easy fix. Like if you're Blizzard, you're like, oh, you know what? We didn't really think of that. We could just move that to the bottom right of the tree, or like we can shuffle these things around and it feels better. Done, right? Like that's cool. There's a lot of stuff that is exciting to pick and some that aren't, and you can maybe shuffle it around and now we have this exciting tree. I think what's hard about the Mage tree, so not any of the spec trees, but the Mage tree, is I feel like we just need like all new talents, right? Like, and that's what I felt like really sad about with the Mage tree. It's like, oh, it's not that you just need to move them. It's not that one is like, oh, this one should be here, this one should be here. Like with Arcane, like really the things we're nitpicking about Arcane are like, oh yeah, this one shouldn't be at the top, or like this one is a weird placement, or this one, you know, maybe isn't the most fun, but a lot of them are still cool. Like Arcane is still okay, whereas the Mage tree, it's just like almost every talent needs to be changed. Like they're all defensive talents through the whole tree, and it's not that they just need to be moved, but and that I personally I feel like that's why I was so like, oh, with the Mage tree, you know.
Yeah.
But you could pick Foresight, right? So you don't have to pick Foresight.
No, you don't have to pick it. I'm just saying it's like a weird
You would
one.
never pick it though, right?
Yeah,
No, never. Just Enlighten.
So same with Arcane Familiar, there's dead talents.
Yeah, you just don't pick them. But Arcane Tempo is so fun. I was like, I want Arcane Tempo, but
it's impossible to get it.
Yeah.
So I would say, in my opinion, the Arcane tree is the best designed. Yep. And there's actually like some interesting options. So like, with the build that I came up with, I don't have Nether Precision or Slipstream, but both of those are really good, and you could pick them up, you know, like, or you could go into like Radiant Spark. I don't have it, but you could go into Radiant Spark and like change the playstyle up a bit. But I would say just like, there's like maybe like 4 or 5 talents that, like both the Mana Gem talents I think need to be changed. Nether Tempest is another one of those spells that just is never tuned. I'm not kidding you guys. So on the beta, I went on the alpha actually. I think you have about 25,000 health in the gear I was dueling in, and with Rune of Power and Arcane Surge procced, a full Arcane Surge, Rune of Power, Nether Tempest with 4 charges hits for 100 into 25,000 health. Like it takes for 100. It's the worst dot in the game. So I feel like it was kind of like Nether Tempest and Living Bomb and Mop, and I think it would be cool if, you know, they're at least tuned to do something.
I mean, you just do it for the dot, right? Like right now, right? There's no other reason to press it. Don't press it for damage.
Yeah. Same
with Living Bomb, which is
it's kind of like a Living Bomb, yeah.
Oh.
But it's fun when dots, like it's fun to have like a spell that does something, you know, that's a bit, makes your rotation a bit more interesting. It just sucks that it does nothing, unfortunately.
They could add a short cooldown to it and make it increase the damage. I think it has no cooldown right now.
They could do something like that for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, Arcane is great.
Well,
I don't really have too many nitpicks for Arcane. I think it's interesting to note that like it has the least amount of choice nodes out of all of them. You only have 2. I don't know, maybe if you did want to add something, you could add some more, maybe something important somewhere that could change the playstyle up a bit. Because right now it seems like it's a very I don't know, Arcane's kind of had the same playstyle for a long time, you know, so maybe you could do something there.
I think, I mean, I agree to some degree. I think the playstyle of Arcane is going to feel like a bit different. I guess it's more semantics when I say different than anything, because I guess realistically a lot of it does play the same. But with Arcane Surge and with instant Touch of the Magi, I think
that is true.
It's gonna feel like a little different. Yeah. I think that
for me, Arcane is.
Go ahead.
You go. I was just gonna say the one school thing. That's always been like the problem with Arcane, right? So what do you guys think about that?
I mean, we might get DB and Ring of Frost and the other tree. So that could help with Arcane. Like I said, I'd rather have DB just for fire, really. And have MCS to... I guess we haven't mentioned MCS should probably be in the Arcane tree somewhere. I think that'd be so cool. Or a PvP talent, but or in the Mage tree, but somewhere. I think that'd be really cool. But yeah, I like the... I think the coolest thing I like about Arcane is when you get a clear casting proc, it feels exciting. You know you're gonna do some damage. That it feels cool. Like it feels like, okay, nice. It just doesn't feel good to get like a pyro proc and you use your pyro and the health doesn't move. Or you get an Ice Lance proc and use an Ice Lance and their health doesn't move. Like to get a clear casting proc and do some damage feels pretty cool. And that just comes down to tuning, right? Like a lot of it comes down to tuning, and yeah, so I'm excited to see where they go with that. But yeah, I agree. I think Arcane is the best designed one so far. It's not perfect yet, but it's okay. It's okay.
I do really like the fire tree, to be honest. I don't think it's a bad tree at all. I think Fire Mage will maybe play the same as it is now, unless the Pyroblast build would potentially work, which I don't think is bad. The Frostmage tree is a bit like, I feel too similar to how it's played right now. Compared to anything else, I feel like it would be exact same story.
Yeah.
Ice Veins Frostbolt only. But my biggest problem just about the Mage in general is just the Mage tree just feels like it's completely out of place for any sort of like the game raiding, Mythic Plus, PvP, anything. It's like, it's just a bunch of conduits. I think it just has to go, and they need to make different choices. And also more like meaningful choices. Maybe like Blast Wave, Mass Polymorph, etc. Like more choices like this. Like you can pick one or the other.
Yeah.
Utility base.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of the choices for the general tree just feel like you're not really getting more powerful when you pick them, and you're dumping so many talents into these things.
You don't even notice that. Yeah.
It's like,
it's just...
oh, Fridge wins. Yay, you know. I mean, it's strong, but yeah.
Yeah, like Flow of Time. There's just so many talents where you pick them and you won't even, your gameplay doesn't change. You don't even notice it at all. Like things like Diverted Energy, Tempest Barrier, Flow of Time, Arcane Warding, like all these things, you're going to pick them and you're not going to notice them at all. And it's like, it's just not that exciting to use them.
No, the only thing that people will say is like, look at the Mage's healing done.
Yeah.
That's the only thing people will say. Like, this is not exciting. And that's why my solution was to reduce the blink cooldown of Shimmer by like 5 seconds or something like this. Yeah. Instead of just making these healing things.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, cool.
I don't know.
I mean, if you guys have any other closing thoughts, I mean, we've been kind of chatting a while. I think the biggest, just to like summarize a little bit, I think the biggest issue that we all have is the mage tree feels all defensive. I think Dragon's Breath maybe should belong to Fire. Master of Time should maybe belong to Arcane, and then introduce things either like Deep Freeze or Improve Counterspell into the trees, Alter Time, maybe having a longer cooldown, not lasting as long, having some choice nodes with that. Like, there's a lot of things we can do with that Mage tree, and then the Arcane tree and Fire tree are okay, and the Frost one needs some work, like we chatted about. But yeah, if there's anything like specifically that we haven't touched on, you guys. If not,
no, I just feel like every class has some sort of initiation, like we talked about before, like the Nova MCS into Sheep, like the DB for Fire Mage, like our Deep Freeze for Frost Mage. Like every class needs something unique to make them like set a go. Like this current playstyle of Mage, standing back and waiting for team to do something, is the worst Mage gameplay I've ever played.
Yeah, yeah, just to touch on that a bit more, like Frost Mage or Arcane Mage would be able to push in if you could Nova MCS Sheep. But since you can't do that, you have to wait for them to come to you and wait for your teammates to do things, to do anything. And same thing with Frost. If you had Deep Freeze, Frost, you could actually push in and deep and actually start a go and like play aggressive. But since you don't have deep, you have to just play back in the open and wait for them to come to you and just hope they stay in the open too long so you kill them, or wait for dampening. Yeah. And then you trap them in with like 3 Frostbite procs in a row, and then they can't move and then they die. Like Deep Freeze would actually make the gameplay more fun for everyone, because you would actually be able to initiate goes. The gameplay would feel more back and forth, and it wouldn't just be like damp forever. And same thing with MCS. So
yeah, I think it's actually, I was gonna say, I think it's actually a little bit interesting though. In the case of Arcane in particular, I don't know if you actually do need improved counterspell. Maybe it would be, you know, fun. But like in Legion, for example, you had really good damage. Like you had really good damage, and you had super high mobility with like displacement. So you had Shimmer and Displacement, and you had really powerful Slow and Chrono Shift, and you know, Mass Invis and Greater Invis, and you could actually like set up. You could get polymorphs. Like as a healer, it's not like avoiding a fire, like a Frost Mage who's playing Blink Stun. Like that's pretty easy to avoid. But like an Arcane Mage with Displacement and stuff like that, who has so many Blink charges, I feel like they actually did have an opportunity to set themselves up, and they could, because they were also like throwing the healer off guard by doing damage. So I think
that's maybe why
damage would be good.
Maybe that's why they wouldn't need like an additional thing like Palm Sheep. Like that might be overkill.
Yeah.
But then the problem is that Legion had a 15-second blink cooldown on Shimmer, and now it's 25 seconds. So you couldn't just do this like blink. You know, what if they come back in time, blink again? You know.
Yeah.
It wouldn't
so what is it going to be? Shimmer is going to be
25.
So no, but you can get Flow of Time, which is 1.5 seconds off.
23.5.
23.5.
3.
Unless the charges would bug out like it does now, and it would be like 0.725 each.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that'd be a bit unfortunate.
Because that's how it works right now. I swear that's a bug, by the way.
I think it is. It seems like it is.
Yeah, I've thought so since the start expansion.
What if they made a choice node with Palm to make it so it's like you either get 2 instant Arcane Blast or 1 instant any ability. That might
Needs
be
more choice nodes.
like
It only
that
has
might
the least
be
out of all of
that
them.
might be interesting, right? Because then you could like choose Palm Poly or more damage. Which by
Palm
the way,
Arcane Surge.
I don't even know if
Pog.
I would want to Palm Poly over the blasts with the amount of other ways to get sheeps, but
Let's say you could Palm Arcane Surge.
oh yeah, we have to make that not. Yeah, you can't do that. Yeah.
But, like, if
Anyway,
you want to touch some things quickly, just like a quick like summary. If they wanted to make like these things that we talked about, like damage specific things for PvP, maybe they should just add more honor talents.
yeah,
Like having 3 honor talents is kind of little, to be honest. You had 4 in what was the last expansion or something. Now you have 3. You have so little choices right now to do anything.
yeah.
I think that would give a lot more room to kind of, because I think a lot of classes struggle from the whole being limited by 3. I don't think it's exclusive to Mage. I think everyone would kind of be like, I know as a Mage, I would enjoy that. I have a lot of honor talents that I want to pick.
I wish there was, if you got to pick 4, I wish there would be like more interesting honor talents though. Like I don't want to just
That's
pick like Netherwind armor and you
just
know,
have that baseline. Yeah.
right. It's just like I don't want just like more random passive stuff. I want like really meaningful, like cool stuff. If they were to give us more options there. If not, like I also don't mind the idea of just having more stuff in the Mage tree or Arcane tree. You know, I know that is maybe difficult with PV and PvP. But guys, thanks for chatting. This was awesome.
Yeah.
I can't believe we actually chatted for 2 hours. Like I did not expect it to go that long, but I'm glad we did.
It's already
You
been 2
know,
hours.
I guess so.
I could chat longer too.
2.5, yeah. Over 2 hours, and I'm glad we did though, because I think we got a lot out there. You know, for people to listen to, maybe devs to listen to. To just kind of.
I mean, what do we hope that the devs do though? Because if the devs are watching this, what do we hope that they do?
We hope they listen to the whole thing through and take some
Yeah.
No one's gonna watch
constructive
the whole
criticism.
thing, but if we have to make it quickly, what do you want them to do? You want to just rework the Mage talent tree, right? Remove all the conduit things. That's what I want to do. Like I want them to do that. Then make more choices. Like just no conduit things. Like scrap that.
But they do that for all classes, so it's like on their end, they're like, well, they don't want to get rid of all of them because then it's like then you're
All of
changing like
them.
every tree.
I
Yeah.
think
All
you
of
could
them,
keep
get rid of
some.
all-
You
all
could
of
keep
them.
some, but I think the problem is too many of them in the Mage tree are purely defensive. If this current design stays, mages will be very tanky. And the fire playstyle, the frost playstyle, and the arcane playstyle are very similar to how it is right now. And they're very much just tanks that are going to do equal or more healing as damage. So, no.
I mean, you want more mobility, right? And be able to take like more damage when you actually get hit.
Yeah. I think it's also a broader problem than just mage, because I do think it's easy to say mages have too much healing, and I agree, but so do shamans, so do warriors, so do rets, so do DKs, so do demon hunters, so does every class, which is that's a problem with the whole game, right? So
I guess if I wanted to like make changes to the regular tree, I would say less 0 out of 3 talents and more like if you wanted something to be like Frigid Winds where it's 3, 6, 10, we could change that to like a 2 thing and then it goes 5, 10. Or if you do want to make it 0 out of 3, make it to where it's designed to where you can go around it without having to use all 3 to get to the next one.
yeah, I completely agree. Yep.
I just like the idea in general of having a bunch of really good, cool options and not being able to get them all. Like,
Yeah, that's how
you
arcane
have a
feels.
bunch of really good, cool options. You can't get them all, and that's where you have to kind of sacrifice. But I don't feel that.
There are no
like,
cool options. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't feel that. I'm
Yeah,
like,
there's
ooh,
no
I don't
cool
get mirror
options.
image. Like, ooh,
Oh, that's fine.
I feel like the same. Either there's not enough cool options, or there's just the obvious option.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
With
Like
arcane,
half the things.
Venruki, what I like is that you're like, I have a really cool arcane build. I don't have enough to get Slipstream and Radiant Spark, but they
Yeah.
probably are really good. I wish I could get them, but I don't think
Yeah.
I can build it in my
Like,
build.
some people will get them though. Like, you know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like, there are tweaks you could make to get them. I think
Yeah.
that's what's really cool.
That is really cool. Like Mitch Jones for sure taking Radiant Spark. You know, like there's some really
And
cool.
Siphon Storm, like 100%.
Yeah, like that's really cool that it's like, man, I really want that. But yeah, the Mage tree, there's nothing like that, you know. But if there was like Blazing Speed and Ring of Frost or Deep Freeze on that bottom left and Blazing Speed on the right or something, it's like, oh, okay, Yeah. And then I think what you said, Aegis, is really intelligent. Like the 3 out of 3 nodes, make them 2 out of 3 nodes. So you have more points to spend in other areas. That'd be cool too.
Yeah. But I do agree that like I'm just looking at it now and I'm just like Winter's Protection, Grounding Surge, Incantation of Swiftness.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Incantation of Swiftness, I cannot ever see it being picked in my whole entire life.
Yeah. It's just
Unless,
nothing
actually,
exciting.
for Mythic Plus, if you want to run it, you want to pull mobs really far, like alter, you invis, you pull all the mobs, you alter back all the mobs on you.
Yeah, probably. All right.
Maybe.
Well,
There you
There's
go.
some cool choices like shamans have. Shamans have some really, really cool and fun choices.
yeah.
Yeah,
I want that
everyone's
too.
hyping up Shaman, like saying Shaman
Everyone
is
loves
the
Shaman, yeah.
best. Yeah. I like when Mage Tanks came out, I was like so disappointed. I was like, oh, it's just the same as usual.
I will say for the Mage Talent Tree, after looking at Fire and Frost a little bit, or not Frost, after looking at Fire and Arcane a little bit more in depth and like really thinking about it, I was happier with those ones. Like I feel like Fire and Arcane are actually pretty cool. The General Tree, I'm trying, but I still am not excited about it no matter what I put my points into. And Frost is just Frost to me is just Shadowlands but worse.
Yep.
Like,
Yeah.
So
I completely agree with that. Like if you're gonna, we have like 4 new trees that we got: the Mage tree, the Fire tree, the Frost tree, and the Arcane tree. And the Arcane and the Fire ones are okay, and the Mage tree and the Frost ones need a lot of work.
Yes, I agree.
We all agree on that. Awesome.
Yes.
Yep.
Cool. All right, let's wrap it up with that. Thank you guys so much for the time. That was amazing. I really appreciate it.
Oh, yeah.
Raiku, Aeghis last minute too, and Venruki for making this happen.
Yeah, thank you for hosting.
happy to be here.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Thanks, guys.
Zar.
Thank you.